Chapter 1931, Meeting Huan Chen, 3, Sister. We haven't eaten anything yet. The two little fellows looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully, their eyes still misty. Don't worry, Grape has already gone to prepare food for you. Leng Ruoxue coaxed. She had never been able to resist these cute little fellows. So, before they cried, she had already asked Grape to prepare some food. She couldn't really let these two little things go hungry. Big sister is the best. It's much better than those old fogies who think that eating vegetables is good for health. From tomorrow onwards, they will be eating vegetables. A wolf cub said hatefully. Yes, but can you two make the decision? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Of course. We're in charge of the wolves' food. The two wolf pups said at the same time. You guys are really capable. Leng Ruoxue praised. She didn't expect these two little things to be so difficult to deal with. She started to pity those old wolves. Hee hee. The two wolf pups laughed evilly. At this moment, Grape had finished preparing 2 portions of food and placed them in front of the two wolf pups. Instantly, the fragrance of the food filled the air, causing the two little fellows to drool. Without waiting for Leng Ruoxue's order, the two wolf pups pounced towards the food. They had completely forgotten about the chopsticks. Who asked them to be so afraid? Before they could even master the chopsticks, the food would be gone. Therefore, he would have to slowly practice using chopsticks in the future. After watching the two little fellows gobble down the food and arranging a place for them to stay, Leng Ruoxue and the rest returned to their rooms to rest. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue had just walked out of her room when she heard a pained wail coming from the guest courtyard not far away. Filled with suspicion, everyone went to the guest courtyard at the same time. What's going on? Seeing that unreliable old wolf king rolling around on the ground shamelessly, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were all speechless. What was he up to again? Ah! He was fine. Fine. When the wolf queen heard Leng Ruoxue's words, her face was filled with awkwardness. She secretly glared at her troublesome man. This detestable thing. This was someone else's territory, yet he had caused their fire wolf clan to lose so much face. Are you sure you're fine? Leng Ruoxue was in disbelief. Looking at the old fire wolf, it didn't look like he was fine. Moreover, this was her home after all, so she felt that it was better for her to ask clearly. Yes, yes. The wolf queen nodded with certainty. However, at this moment, the old wolf king shouted with a dissatisfied expression, Who said he's fine? We're your guests. How can you abuse us like this? Damn it. You shut up. Without giving Leng Ruoxue and the others a chance to react, the wolf queen furiously pulled the old wolf king's ear and growled in a low voice. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest heard the old wolf king's words, they were dumbfounded. What was going on? When did they abuse them? Wolf Queen. Don't stop it, I want to hear how we mistreated it. After a moment of silence, Leng Ruoxue finally spoke. Ah. Miss Leng, don't listen to its nonsense. The Wolf Queen's face was filled with shame as she kept glaring at her man. There are no waves without wind. I believe that the Fire Wolf King wouldn't lie. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Human. You know me very well. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the old Fire Wolf King's face was filled with pride. It was just short of raising its tail proudly. However, its proud expression, coupled with its image of rolling on the ground, made people speechless. Then tell me. Leng Ruoxue sighed. Then I won't be polite, You've been abusing me, feeding me vegetables early in the morning. I want tea. I want to eat meat. The Fire Wolf King roared in one breath. We haven't even started making breakfast yet. Where did you get the vegetables to eat? Upon hearing this, Grape could not help but doubt. What? You haven't made breakfast yet? Are you guys trying to starve me to death? Grape's words made the Fire Wolf King even angrier. Looking at the Fire Wolf King's reaction, Grape could not help but roll his eyes. Damn it. That's not the main point, okay? Why did this old Fire Wolf always give irrelevant answers? I really don't know what the structure of its brain is, it's so different. I'm asking you where you got the vegetables to eat? After a long while, Grape gritted his teeth and said. Hee hee. Miss Grape, we're the ones who gave this to Uncle. At this moment, two little fire wolves appeared out of nowhere and said. So that's how it is. Fire Wolf King, did you hear that? This is none of our business. We didn't abuse you. Grape quickly said. You guys didn't make me breakfast. The Fire Wolf King emphasized. It no longer used the word abuse. Uncle. We're guests, we have to be self-aware. Don't bother Grape's sister and the others with breakfast, we've already prepared it for you. Hurry up and eat. It won't taste good if it's cold. A little fire wolf urged with an evil smile. When the crowd heard the little fire wolf's words, they couldn't help but compare the two fire wolves in their hearts. Sigh. The young one was more understanding than the old one. This old fire wolf was really regressing the more he lived. However, none of them had any intention of getting involved in the dispute between the fire wolves, so they all kept silent. I don't want to eat the breakfast you guys made. Old Fire Wolf looked at the vegetables on the table that had been cooked into a dark green color and said with a look of disgust. Uncle. You're hurting us by saying that. The two little fire wolves revealed a sad expression at the same time and spoke in unison. I appreciate your filial piety, but don't even think about making me eat the food you make. The old Fire Wolf King was very stubborn. That was pig food, wasn't it? It wasn't for wolves at all. Uncle, eating vegetables is good for your health. Uncle. Hurry up and eat. The two little fire wolves ignored the Fire Wolf King's words and simply placed the breakfast they had prepared in front of the Fire Wolf King. They looked at it with anticipation. Looking at the broken leaves, the old Fire Wolf dared to swear in its heart that the vegetables were definitely not fresh. It might even be leftovers from yesterday. So, how could it eat it? In fact, it had guessed right. The breakfast made by the two little fire wolves was indeed the leftover vegetables from last night. Furthermore, they had picked them up from the trash. After they were done washing, they hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to serve the food to the Fire Wolf King. However, who knew that not only was the old wolf unwilling to eat, it was even rolling around on the ground shamelessly. For a moment, they were at a loss. I'm not eating. I'm not hungry. Take this food and give it to the elders. The Fire Wolf King rolled its eyes and decided to direct the trouble to the elders. The elders of the Fire Wolf clan, who were watching from the side, were scared into scattering when they heard this. Leng Ruoxua looked at the red lights that were disappearing quickly and sighed again. She had lost count of how many times she had sighed. After giving Feng De and the rest a look, Leng Ruoxua led them out of the guest courtyard. She really couldn't be bothered with matters involving this old fire wolf. Just let those two little fellows torment themselves. Also, she remembered clearly that the old fire wolf said it was not hungry anymore. As expected, Grape and the others did not make the Fire Wolf King's portion during breakfast. After the beasts finished their breakfast, they started to leave one after another. When the old fire wolf saw this, he took the opportunity to walk in front of Leng Ruoxua and said with a face full of dissatisfaction, "Human, I'm still hungry. Give me something to eat. Didn't you say you weren't hungry?" Leng Ruoxua's eyes widened in disbelief, as if she had just heard a fantasy story. "I'm hungry again, okay?" The Fire Wolf King said angrily. "All right." Leng Ruoxua nodded. Then, she turned to the two little fire wolves and said, "Your uncle is hungry again. They're here. Uncle. Your breakfast is here." Hearing Leng Ruoxua's words, the two little fire wolves became excited again. They quickly ran to the Fire Wolf King and handed over the shattered vegetable leaves. "I don't want to eat this." The Fire Wolf King's expression immediately turned ugly. its fiery red fur also faintly suffused with black anger. It was clear that it was really angry. "Uncle, there's no other food other than this. Just make do with it," a fire wolf said. "Yup. Uncle. Don't be a picky eater, I'll tell you the truth. Those elders also haven't had breakfast yet. If they are also hungry, you won't even be able to eat these vegetables," the other fire wolf purposely reminded in a low voice. Hearing their words, Leng Ruoxiu's mouth twitched. No wonder she felt that there were fewer fire wolves for breakfast. They were not hungry. "It's better not to eat it. You can leave it for them to eat. I'm not hungry anymore. I'll go back first," the fire wolf king said angrily and ran away. AI. They had finally sent this god of plague away. Watching the fire wolf king's back, Leng Ruoxua muttered to herself. Then, the fire wolf king brought his clansmen to bid farewell to Leng Ruoxua. After the beasts from the land of demons had left, only the first elder and the rest of the members of the leopard clan remained in the Leng family's residence. However, from their looks, they did not seem to have any intention of leaving immediately. Leng Ruoxua did not treat them as outsiders either, so she naturally would not accompany them all the time. From that day on, there would always be some unusual noises in the land of evil demons in the middle of the night, accompanied by wolf howls from time to time. However, Leng Ruoxua and the rest did not pay much attention to it. Not long after, Fengde and the rest requested to enter closed-door cultivation. Leng Ruoxua was also preparing to go into closed-door cultivation. However, before that, she specially brought the demon to meet Huan Chen. Within the dream dust space, a white-robed man glared at Leng Ruoxua with a face full of hidden bitterness. He spoke as if he was a resentful husband. "Little girl, why are you only here now? I've been waiting for you for days." Chapter 1932, Dream Dust's Talent, 1. Upon hearing this, Leng Ruoxia's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. They had contacted each other a few days ago, right? Huan Chen was the one who told her not to disturb him and to sleep well for a few days. Now, he was biting back at her. However, when the evildoer heard Huan Chen's words, his handsome face immediately darkened. With a straight face, he went up and grabbed Huan Chen's collar. He narrowed his eyes at Xing'an and said angrily, "What did you just say? I dare you to say that again. Let me go, you barbaric man. AI. Why does this little girl like you? You really have no taste." Huan Chen said, unafraid of death. "Good. Very good. You've got guts," the demon said with a smile that was not a smile. After which, he grabbed Huan Chen's collar and directly dragged him away. Leng Ruoxua couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw the demon's actions. The demon was so manly. However, this seemed to be the dream dust space. She had never heard of a guest being able to teach the host a lesson. However, she immediately heard Huan Chen's frightened voice from not far away. "Arg! You savage man, what are you doing? This is my territory." What followed was a loud bang bang. Ugh! This monster really dared to do this? Leng Ruoxua was speechless. She couldn't help but think to herself, isn't he afraid of Huan Chen's revenge? No, Huan Chen had already recognized her as his master. Didn't that mean that evildoer was the one who was teaching her a lesson? Oh. Well fixed. Leng Ruoxua quickly made a wise decision. She couldn't be blamed for valuing her beauty over her subordinates. After all, provoking the evildoer would bring her more benefits than disadvantages. So, in order to make the evildoer feel comfortable, she could only let Huan Chen down. Who asked that fellow to be so insensible and provoke the evildoer? This was probably the so-called, one can't live with one's own sins. In an instant, Leng Ruoxua had already made her decision. Huan Chen's wailing continued to enter her ears, but she ignored them all. Leng Ruoxua pretended to be bored as she sized up the illusion dust space. Even though this wasn't her first time here, this place didn't seem to have changed much from the last time she saw it. It was still a vast expanse of white. She really couldn't understand how the illusion dust could live here like a fish in water. In reality, Dream Dust was a lazy person. Moreover, he spent most of his time sleeping. As a result, he basically didn't manage this space. In the past, when the previous owner was still alive, he didn't pay much attention to this space. As time passed, the Dream Dust space became even more bare. To be honest, Leng Ruoxue couldn't tell what was so good about this illusionary dust space. They had lived here for close to a month, and other than finding their way, they didn't seem to have done anything else. Thus, she had come here to have a good chat with Huan Chen and find out what was so special about this space. After all, it was a divine artifact refined by a former divine master. There would definitely be something extraordinary about it. However, Huan Chen still seemed to be getting beaten up. After an unknown period of time, the two of them finally appeared in front of Leng Ruoxue. Looking at Huan Chen's bruised face, Leng Ruoxue didn't even give him a word of greeting other than expressing her sympathy with her gaze. "Master. He beat me up." Huan Chen saw that Leng Ruoxue did not care about him and could only open his mouth to remind her in an aggrieved manner. This detestable man not only beat him up, but he also specially slapped his face. Humph. Don't think that he didn't know that this man was clearly jealous of his beauty. Humph. Huan Chen's words made the demon scoff coldly. Then, his dazzling eyes glanced at Leng Ruoxue indifferently, with a warning in his red eyes, "Do as you see fit." When Leng Ruoxue saw the two of them, she felt a headache coming on. However, she had to stand on the side of the evildoer. "I saw it." Leng Ruoxue sighed softly and said indifferently. "Then master, you must avenge me." Huan Chen blinked her beautiful eyes and said with anticipation. "What revenge?" Leng Ruoxue played dumb and continued, "I think you really need a beating." "Good job, demon." Leng Ruoxue's words made the evildoer very satisfied. However, Huan Chen was heartbroken to hear this. "Master. How can you do this? I'm your tool spirit." Huan Chen was so aggrieved that he was about to cry. How could he have such a master? Not only did she not support him, she even allowed evil forces to bully him. This was really too much. "I know. I'm helping reason and not family," Leng Ruoxue said without any shame. "Master." Huan Chen was completely depressed when he heard this. This master was clearly lecherous by nature and valued lechers over him. He actually said it in such a dignified manner. Humph. He despised her in his heart. Dream Dust. The demon beating you up is for your own good, but look at how lazy you are. You don't even know how to tidy up your own place. There's not even a bit of green in such a big place. It's bare everywhere. How can you live in it? Leng Ruoxue started to criticize Huan Chen again. As she spoke, she shot a glance at Huan Chen with a resentful expression. "Master. This isn't a place for people to live in the first place." Leng Ruoxue's words caused Huan Chen to feel a sense of inferiority. However, he quickly realized that his place was not for people to live in. Not a place for people to live. Then wouldn't it be a waste to leave such a big place idle? Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. She didn't know if it was her occupational habit, but whenever she saw the space, she would think of building a house and planning it properly. "Master. My place is specially used for training," Huan Chen faintly said. "Only for experience?" Leng Ruoxue couldn't believe it. In fact, if this place was used for training, she wouldn't have found anything worth training in. There wasn't even a single insect here. "There's still the competition," Huan Chen added. "Then can you tell me how I can train here?" Leng Ruoxue was a little curious, but she didn't ask about the competition. Heaven's secrets cannot be divulged. Only those who have come here to train will know. In fact, there was something else he didn't say. If anyone who came here to train couldn't pass, they wouldn't have the chance to leave. After passing, they would completely forget about the training process. Looking at Huan Chen's mysterious behavior, Leng Ruoxia's anger rose. She had also discovered what her weapon's spirit was. None of them were easy to deal with, all of them were so arrogant. Master, are you here to gain experience? Huan Chen noticed that Leng Ruoxia seemed to be a little unhappy and quickly asked. Don't. Leng Ruoxia rejected him without even thinking. Her tone was unfriendly and she was obviously angry. Master. My place was refined by His Excellency the Divine Master. I suggest you come and experience it for yourself. It'll be very beneficial to you. Dream Dust coaxed. Then I won't come either. Leng Ruoxia said with certainty. Humph. She would not be fooled. Chapter 1933, Dream Dust's Talent, 2, Master. Huan Chen looked at Leng Ruoxia gloomily. Why was Master so stubborn? It was for her own good that he let her master come in to gain experience. At the thought of this, he glanced at the demon without a sound. However, the demon did not even look at him. Instantly, he felt even more depressed. The people around Master are not to be trifled with. Huan Chen sighed in his heart. Shuer, didn't you want to go into seclusion? I think the spiritual energy here is not bad. Why don't you go into seclusion here? After that, the demon spoke indifferently. Hearing his words, Huan Chen's worry immediately turned into joy. I hope Master will listen to this guy. Why? Leng Ruoxia blinked her beautiful eyes and looked at the demon in confusion. She didn't think that the spiritual energy here would be denser than the one in the universal bracelet. Furthermore, she had always been cultivating in the purple bamboo house and was used to it. Your state of mind will also be different in a different environment. Moreover, doesn't this dream dust space also belong to you? You can't be biased. If this space continues to be idle, it might become more and more desolate, so you should just treat it as doing a good deed. The demon said with a hidden meaning. Ah! Was there such a good person? Leng Ruoxia was very suspicious of the demon's words. However, she couldn't deny that there was some truth to his words. This fantasy dust space was hers as well. If she didn't use it, it might rust, she couldn't help but think to herself. Although she was still a little hesitant, her heart had loosened a little. When Huan Chen heard the demon's words, he almost went crazy. Depression? Which part of his place was desolate? This was clearly a high-level space beyond the mortal world. However, even though he was angry, he had to continue the conversation with the hateful man. He looked at Leng Ruoxia with a bitter expression and tears welled up in his eyes. He then said with a slightly choked voice, Master, I know you have a good space, but I'm different from it. As for what's different, you'll only know after you experience it yourself. I can only say that you'll regret it if you don't come to my place for closed-door cultivation. Really? Leng Ruoxia was skeptical. She did not know what she had to regret. Didn't this place already belong to her? Wouldn't that mean that she could come whenever she wanted? It's true. It's more real than diamonds. Huan Chen hurriedly promised. After hearing Huan Chen's assurance, Cold Ruoxia's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. These words seemed a little familiar. Master. I've been to many dimensions with my previous master, so I know more than you can imagine. If you stay here, it'll guide you, and you'll never regret it. Huan Chen, who could sense Leng Ruoxia's thoughts, advised her. Then. All right. Leng Ruoxia hesitated for a moment, but she still agreed. He. Master, I'll arrange a place for you to cultivate in seclusion. You guys can chat first. After Huan Chen finished speaking, he disappeared in a flash. Looking at Huan Chen's energetic appearance, Leng Ruoxia could not help but doubt her own decision. Shuer. Although that fellow is lazy and a little out of line, he has been living in the divine realm for so many years. He knows more about the various powers in the divine realm than we do. Thus, you should be able to learn a lot of things if you stay here. The evildoer could see Shui Er's unwillingness and gently pulled her into his arms. Well, what about you? Leng Ruoxue looked at the evildoer and asked. All these years, the evildoer had always been by her side when she was in closed-door cultivation. Therefore, she would not be used to it if the evildoer was not by her side. Silly girl, of course I won't leave you. I'll also enter closed-door cultivation with you. The demon laughed. How could he bear to leave Shui Er? That's good. Leng Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction. At this moment, Huan Chen, who had quickly made all the arrangements, ran back excitedly. Seeing the two of them hugging, Huan Chen said with a little dissatisfaction, "You're not married yet. You can't take advantage of my master." He was mainly talking to the evildoer. Hearing Huan Chen's words, the two of them looked at Huan Chen in disbelief. Wasn't Huan Chen being too nosy? Why do you care? The demon said coldly. Of course it's my business, my master is still young, you old thing can't deceive her pure heart. I have to keep a good watch on my master's behalf. Huan Chen said matter-of-factly, not feeling like he was being a busybody at all. It seems like I was too lenient with my beating just now. The demon glanced at Huan Chen and threatened. You can't do this. What kind of skill is using force? You have to be convinced by virtue. A trace of fear flashed through Huan Chen's eyes, but he still said without fear of death. In any case, he was his master's artifact spirit. He did not believe that this hateful man would really dare to do anything to him. Using virtue to win people over. I don't need it. I prefer a more direct one. The demon laughed evilly and acted like he was going to grab Huan Chen again. However, Huan Chen, who was prepared, dodged. I'm not going to argue with a barbarian like you, master. I've already prepared the place for you, I'll take you there. With that, Huan Chen had an idea and disappeared from the spot with Leng Ruoxue. In an instant, Leng Ruoxue felt that the place she was in had changed. She was brought to a sealed room. The four walls of the room were as white as jade, and there were no decorations on the walls. There was only a futon on the ground in the room. This was really a simple place. However, the spiritual energy in this room was unbelievably rich. What was going on? Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes scanned her surroundings. After a careful observation, she was shocked to discover that the spiritual energy in this place came from the walls. His hand unconsciously touched the snow-white wall, and the only feeling he had was its smoothness and exquisiteness. After a while, she felt waves of dense spiritual energy pouring into her body. Instantly, her entire body felt comfortable. This place was truly unbelievable. Moreover, she could also tell that the strangeness of this room came from the jade-like snow-white walls around it. She just didn't know what material they were made of. Master, are you satisfied with this place? Huan Chen asked with great confidence. This was the place where his previous master cultivated in seclusion. Although it looked simple and crude, there was a world inside. I'm very satisfied. Leng Ruoxue nodded. It's good that you're satisfied. Master, then you should stay here and cultivate. I suggest that you only come out of seclusion when you can advance to Reverend God level. Huan Chen said with an expression of anticipation. Reverend God. Huan Chen's words made Leng Ruoxue's expression darken. Was it possible for her to come out of seclusion after she advanced to Reverend God level? How long would that take? Even though Leng Ruoxue did not know how long it would take to cultivate to Reverend God level, she was very clear that it was impossible. She couldn't possibly stay in seclusion forever. At the thought of this, Leng Ruoxue helplessly said to Huan Chen, I can't stay in seclusion all the time. It's unrealistic to wait until I reach Reverend God level before coming out. Chapter 1934, Dream Dust's Talent, 3, Why? Huan Chen's handsome face was filled with question marks. Because my territory has just started to develop, and Fengde and the others are in seclusion, so I need someone to take charge. Although her godfather would help her take care of her while she was in seclusion, he still had the Ning family. He couldn't stay with her all the time. More importantly, she couldn't be so selfish as to trap him here. You're so weak now, what can you do outside? Huan Qin spoke frankly. Even though he wanted to tell Leng Ruoxue how powerful her enemies were, his master's strength made him hesitate. Was she being despised by dream dust? Hearing Huan Chen's tone, Leng Ruoxue felt depressed. She also knew that she was weak. Although she often had many enemies, it was mostly because of the light of her natal flame. In reality, there was still a big gap between her strength and those people. However, she was already working hard on her cultivation. It couldn't be that she was as useless as Huan Qin had said, right? I know that I'm weak, but I really can't stay here forever. It hasn't been long since I came to the divine world and there are many places that I haven't been to. Therefore, besides cultivating, I also want to go out and gain some experience. Leng Ruoxue sighed softly and said helplessly. Oh. In that case, I really can't stay in seclusion all the time. When Huan Qin heard Leng Ruoxue's explanation, he nodded in agreement and continued, as for training, Master doesn't need to go to the divine realm. I can simulate a divine realm for you, so you can just train here. How can that be the same? Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She could tell that Huan Qin didn't want her to leave this place. Of course it is the same. Master, I have great abilities. I can totally simulate a divine realm for you, and it's 100% realistic. Huan Qin said smugly. How realistic is it? Leng Ruoxue was very curious. Master, do you want to try? Huan Qin said mysteriously. All right. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Then Master, tell me a place. You can just say any place, anywhere. Huan Qin warned. The endless sea. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. All right. Huan Qin replied. As soon as he finished speaking, the room in front of Leng Ruoxue disappeared. In its place was a vast, deep blue ocean. At this moment, the waves on the surface of the sea were turbulent and strong gales blew. She would soon be able to smell the salty taste of the sea. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but rub her eyes. Was this really the endless ocean that the illusion dust had created? Why did she feel that this endless sea was very real and not fake at all? At this moment, a pair of azure blue eyes appeared on the surface of the sea. Following that, a smooth head emerged from the water. When it saw Leng Ruoxue, its eyes revealed a look of surprise. Then, it quickly floated to the surface. Miss Leng, why have you come? We heard that you have your own territory, so we were planning to go and celebrate. I didn't expect you to come to the endless sea. Hee hee. We're really fated to meet. The one who spoke was an old dolphin. It was the one that Leng Ruoxue had saved in the mystic realm and was also the ancestor of her little dolphin. Seeing this old dolphin, Leng Ruoxue looked at Huan Qin beside her with a face full of surprise. How was this possible? Could it be that she had really come to the endless sea? Leng Ruoxue was at a loss. Miss Leng. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue did not respond to it for a long time, the old dolphin could not help but call out softly, Miss Leng doesn't seem to be right. Oh. I'm sorry, I was a little distracted. Leng Ruoxue returned to her senses when she heard the old dolphin's voice. Hee hee. It doesn't matter, Miss Leng, our beasts from the endless ocean are planning to pay a visit to your territory. I wonder when it's convenient for you. The old dolphin sensed that Leng Ruoxue was not paying attention, so it tried to probe her. Let's wait a while. We're all in closed-door cultivation now. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Oh. Well, I'll tell them. Miss Leng, do you want to come to our dolphin race? The old dolphin invited again. Not now, I still have other things to do. Leng Ruoxue declined. That's really a pity, Miss Leng. We'll meet again. After the old dolphin finished speaking, it dove back to the bottom of the sea. Following that, the image of the endless sea disappeared. Leng Ruoxiu's vision returned to the four snow-white walls. What's going on? Leng Ruoxiu looked at Huan Chen and couldn't help but ask. Everything that had happened earlier was too real. She didn't believe that it was fake. Didn't Master see it? That's the endless sea. Huan Chen kept Leng Ruoxiu in suspense and did not answer her question directly. Of course I know that it's the endless sea. I just want to ask you, how did you do it? And that old dolphin I met, was it real? Leng Ruoxiu said with certainty. Of course it's real. As for how I did it, it's related to my talent. Huan Chen finally revealed some truth. Your talent? Leng Ruoxiu looked at Huan Chen, waiting for him to continue. Yes, when the Divine Master first refined me, his original intention was only to have a venue for the elite competition. However, who knew that an accident would happen during the refining process? It inadvertently caused this ordinary divine weapon to produce a weapon spirit. Moreover, it also underwent a mutation and gave me some strange talents. Therefore, my significance is not just for the competition. Huan Chen explained with a faint smile. Is your unique talent to be able to simulate any place I want to go? Leng Ruoxiu asked in shock. Yes, and it's not a simulation. I made a copy of the endless sea and moved it in front of Master. In other words, at that moment, there were actually two endless seas in the divine world. The people and things you see here are synchronized with the two scenes, but you're not there. Huan Chen said. This, Leng Ruoxiu was at a loss for words. She had never heard of such an ability. Master, I'm amazing, right? Now, you can go anywhere you want to train. With me here, you can definitely travel all over the divine realm without spending a little bit of effort. Huan Chen said arrogantly. However, if someone familiar with him was here, they would definitely be shocked. No one would have thought that Huan Chen would be so smug. Ah! Amazing! Leng Ruoxiu nodded. Could she say that she wasn't amazing? At least, among the humans and beasts she knew, no one had such ability. Even Green Vessel did not seem to be able to do this. Then Master can cultivate here in peace. Dream Dust Way. This was his ultimate goal. I can, but I still can't stay here forever. Leng Ruoxiu said helplessly. If she didn't know that Huan Chen had already recognized her as his master, she would have thought that Huan Chen wanted to imprison her here. Chapter 1935, A Stranger in the Demonic Land, 1, I see. Since Master's decision has been made, I can only follow Master's wishes. Huan Chen said helplessly. Then, he changed the topic and said, by the way, Master, I know you have a little beast called Bao Bao. Can you let me train it? After he finished speaking, he even looked at Leng Ruoxiu with a face full of anticipation. Ah! You want your baby to train your baby? Leng Ruoxiu was a little surprised. Even though she didn't know how Huan Chen knew about Baby's existence, Baby had been sleeping ever since they arrived in the God world. No, he was in seclusion. Therefore, she probably couldn't hand her baby over to this guy. More importantly, she was afraid that her baby would be abused by the illusion dust. Master, a piece of jade that is not sculpted is useless. It's the same for little beastie. If it doesn't train well, it will only achieve nothing when it grows up. I think Master also doesn't want baby to be a beastie that can't even protect itself. Huan Chen said earnestly when he saw Leng Ruoxiu's struggle and reluctance. I'm still small. Leng Ruoxiu said softly. Although she didn't deny that Huan Chen's words made sense, her baby was her first little beast and her feelings for him were very special. Hence, she really didn't want her baby to suffer too much. After all, she was confident that she could protect her baby well. Master, that little fellow isn't small anymore. Huan Chen's face was filled with disapproval. But it has been in seclusion all this time, so I can't give it to you now. Leng Ruoxiu said, feeling a little troubled. It's all right, Master. It's mainly because I know how to increase that little fellow's strength, so leaving it to me is the wisest choice. Dream Dust threw out a little bait. Really? Leng Ruoxue looked at Huan Chen in disbelief. Master, I will not lie to you. You must believe me. Huan Chen was depressed. This was not the first time his master had looked at him with such distrust. All right then. Leng Ruoxue hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. Even though she couldn't bear to see her baby suffer, she knew that her baby had always been working hard to become stronger. Now that Huan Chen said that he had a way to increase her power, she would let him try. Then, with a thought, she moved the baby out of the bracelet. At this moment, the baby's round body was curled up and its big furry tail was covering its body. It was sleeping soundly and even snored. From time to time, it would blow a few bubbles from its mouth. Seeing its small appearance, not only Huan Chen, but Leng Ruoxue was also speechless. Ugh! The baby's sleeping posture was not very good. Leng Ruoxue pondered to herself. Master, is this how it cultivates? Huan Chen's mouth twitched as he couldn't help but ask. Yup. Aren't all beastie like this? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be relaxed and said nonchalantly, but in reality, her face was burning. I don't care about the other beasts, but this guy definitely can't do this. Huan Chen glared at the sleeping baby, his body burning with anger. Why? Leng Ruoxue didn't understand. To her, it was normal for a baby to be sleepy when he was still young. However, Huan Chen didn't seem to be thinking that way. Master, I can only tell you now that this fellow's background is not simple. Therefore, it must improve its strength as soon as possible so that it can help you. But looking at it now, it's too far from what I want. Huan Chen glared at the baby, his face full of disappointment. Never in his dreams did he think that this beastie would be so unmotivated. How could it become Master's right arm in the future? Actually, from Leng Ruoxue's point of view, baby Su was just a cute little beast. Hence, she did not have much expectations for baby Su. In her eyes, baby Su only needed to eat and play well. It was not like she could not afford to raise baby Su. However, Huan Chen did not see it that way. Furthermore, if Huan Chen knew that Leng Ruoxue did not have high expectations for baby Su, he would probably vomit blood in anger. But now, Leng Ruoxue clearly did not agree with Huan Chen's idea. Huan Chen, baby is still young, and he's like a little brother to me. Therefore, I don't care if he can really help me, as long as baby is happy. So, although I'm handing baby to you, I don't want you to force baby to do something he doesn't want to do. Leng Ruoxue warned. In fact, in her heart, her baby was already working very hard. Don't worry, Master, I know what I'm doing. Dream Dust said. That's good. Leng Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, an angry roar entered the ears of the two. Damned Huan Chen, return Shuai to me. The demon roared in exasperation. In fact, when the evildoer saw that his arms were empty, he was so angry that his expression changed. That damn illusion Dust, he was playing tricks in front of him. However, he knew that this was Huan Chen's territory. If Huan Chen had really hidden Shuai, it would not be easy for him to find her. As a result, after thinking for a long time, he used his unique voice transmission technique to transmit his voice through the entire space. This way, Shuai would be able to hear him. However, this technique consumed a lot of divine power, so he could not speak much. Moreover, he had to pause for a while after each sentence. Therefore, after he shouted, he fell silent again. However, when Leng Ruoxue heard the evildoer's voice, she knew that he was furious. Hence, she said to Huan Chen anxiously, quickly send me out. If the evildoer gets angry, I can't protect you. Master. No wonder people said, you're not married to a girl yet. You've started to side with him. Compared to him, I'm the one who completely belongs to you. So, how can you not care about my life and death? Huan Chen said with a face full of hidden bitterness. His watery eyes were filled with mist, making one feel pity for him. Unfortunately, the person he had met was Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue had been poisoned by the demon for many years. She was more or less immune to this kind of fellow who liked to act pitiful. Hence, when she saw Huan Chen's state, she was completely unmoved. Instead, she laughed and said, "That's my man, and it's only right for me to side with him. As for you, since it's already mine, why don't you let me hit and scold you? So, if I stand on your side, it's simply a waste of time and a waste of expression. Do you think I'd do such a stupid thing? AI. Master's intelligence is unparalleled in the world." Huan Chen sighed helplessly. The hidden bitterness on his face deepened because he realized that his master was really too honest. This made him somewhat at a loss. "Thank you for your praise. Quickly send me to meet the demon. Otherwise, if he finds you, you'll die a miserable death." Leng Ruoxue reminded him out of the kindness of her heart. "All right then." Huan Chen was helpless. It was his greatest sorrow to have a lustful master. However, he also knew that the man was not to be trifled with, so he should stop while he was ahead. Chapter 1936, The Stranger in the Demonic Land, 2. With a change of thought, Huan Chen brought Leng Ruoxue and appeared in front of the evildoer. The evildoer, who was brewing wine and sending a voice transmission warning, saw Leng Ruoxue's sudden appearance and pulled her into his arms without any hesitation. He hugged her tightly and even glared at Huan Chen with vigilance. "Shuer, this guy didn't do anything to you, right?" After glaring at Huan Chen, the demon started to size up Leng Ruoxue. However, his words made Huan Chen speechless. Leng Ruoxue was his master. What could he do to his own master? Huan Chen secretly cursed and pretended to be invisible. Who asked the demon's anger to not be directed at him? He had better be tactful and lower his presence a little. After Leng Ruoxue heard the demon's words, she smiled charmingly and said, "No, he only took me to see the place where I went into seclusion. The spiritual energy there is very rich, it's a good place for seclusion." "That's good." The demon nodded in satisfaction, then sent a voice transmission to Huan Chen, "I don't have time to deal with you now, but I'll remember this." "Ah. Don't. You can't be that petty, right? I was just joking with you." Huan Chen hurriedly replied as his heart trembled. He had a deep understanding of how terrifying this fellow was. Anyone who was targeted by him would not have a good end, so he would rather let this demonic man beat him up now than wait for him to settle the score later. "I'm just that petty," the demon said with a smile that was not a smile. His brilliant starry eyes glanced at Huan Chen in a slightly provocative manner, causing Huan Chen's heart to turn cold. He knew that this damn demon was serious. Woo! When the time comes, Master must save him. At the thought of this, he immediately disappeared. "Master, I'll go make some preparations for you. You can go out and say hello to the others." Huan Chen's voice came from the void, but he was nowhere to be found. Seeing that Huan Chen ran faster than a rabbit, the demon was overjoyed. Humph. Those who dared to oppose him would not live long. However, seeing that this fellow had already recognized Shuer as his master, he would be lenient. In fact, he was just trying to scare Huan Chen. He didn't plan on doing anything to him, but he didn't expect that guy to be so timid. He was scared away just like that. Not bad, he's teachable. After Huan Chen left, Leng Ruoxue brought the evildoer along and left the Huan Chen space. When she reached the garden, she saw her godfather and the others drinking tea and chatting in the garden. She walked over with the demon. "Shuer, you're done with your work." Master Ning beamed with joy when he saw Leng Ruoxue. Shuer had told them that she needed to make some preparations before she went into seclusion, so she had not come out of her room for 2 days. Godfather, we'll be in closed-door cultivation starting tomorrow." Leng Ruoxue nodded. "All right, I'll help you keep watch here. I don't think anyone will dare to cause trouble," the master of the Ning family promised. "Thank you, Godfather," Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. At this moment, the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters looked at Leng Ruoxue hesitantly. In the end, he still asked, Shuai, I've always wanted to ask you, what happened during the last few days in the special space? As soon as the first elder asked the question, Master Ning and the rest all stared at Leng Ruoxue. This was also what they wanted to know, but they had never had the chance to ask. Godfather, didn't Elder Yi tell you? Leng Ruoxue looked at the anticipating gazes of the few old men and said with a smile. I sent them away as soon as the match ended. The master of the Ning family said, a little embarrassed. In fact, he was the one who chased the Ning family away like they were flies. Before he left, Elder Yi seemed to have something to say to him, but he didn't give Elder Yi a chance to say it. Hearing Master Ning's words, Leng Ruoxue wiped the cold sweat off her forehead. She thought to herself, did Godfather not plan to ask our family at all? Or it could be said that he didn't care about his family's safety at all. When she thought of this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but feel touched. Following that, Leng Ruoxue gave them a simple description of what had happened during the last few days in the special space. However, she did not mention that she had taken over the illusion dust. After hearing it, the few of them frowned and did not say a word. After a long while, the master of the Ning family said, Shuai, can you be sure that they also obtained a god tool that can grow? The master of the Ning family asked, deep in thought. N. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She had asked Fengde and the others, as well as Huan Chen. Other than her, who had obtained Huan Chen, the others had all obtained god tools that could grow. This was also an eyesore to Huan Chen. No wonder. Master Ning understood, but Leng Ruoxue was a little confused. What did Godfather mean by this? Looking at Leng Ruoxue's confused face, Master Ning sighed and said, Shuai, it seems like something big has happened in the Divine Master's estate. The Divine Realm has been in chaos recently. A few small clans have been annihilated for some unknown reason. As far as we know, those small clans were one of the 100 people who were left in the special space. If it weren't for what had happened, they probably wouldn't have taken the initiative to ask about what had happened in the special space. In their opinion, the fact that the girl didn't tell them meant that it wasn't a big deal. But now, it seemed that it wasn't a small matter. They just didn't know how the events of those few days were related to the Divine Lord's estate, which actually made the entire Divine Lord's estate mobilize. Big event? Oh. Huan Chen recognizing a master should be a big deal for the Divine Lord estate, right? Although she did not know why the Divine Lord cared so much about Huan Chen, she knew very well that the destruction of the small clans definitely had something to do with the Divine Lord. Now that she thought about it, what did Huan Chen have that the Divine Lord cared so much about? Could it be that Huan Chen had some important secret? Leng Ruoxue guessed. Godfather, Uncle Long, Great Elder, you should know about that special space, right? After some thought, Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. N. The three of them nodded. They were a little confused by Shuai's meaning. It could be said that there was no one in the Divine Realm who did not know about the special space. I'm its master now. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently, as if she was casually saying the weather is not bad today. Ah. What? Is this true? The three old men's faces were filled with shock and disbelief. How was this possible? That was a special space created by Master Yu himself, how could it recognize a master for no reason? However, what they didn't expect even more was that that thing could actually recognize an owner. After all, in their hearts, they had long believed that the special space belonged to the Divine Master. How could it be an ownerless object? This was too inconceivable. That special space is also known as the Dream Dust Space. An artifact spirit has long since been born within it. He was the one who caused the incident that day. He wanted to find a master for himself, but was afraid that the Divine Master would cause trouble for his master, so he gave each of the remaining 100 a reward. This time, Leng Ruoxue was very detailed. Chapter 1937, The Stranger in the Demonic Land, 3, So it's like this. The three of them nodded in agreement. They did not know what to say about Leng Ruoxue's good luck. It was Master Ye's creation and not anyone could have it. However, they were worried. If the Divine Lord's estate did not find out about this, it would definitely be a good thing. However, if the Divine Lord's estate found out about it, it would be a great disaster for Leng Ruoxue. After all, she was the current Leng Ruoxue. They simply couldn't compete with the God Lord's estate. Even if they were by this little girl's side, they were not a match for the Divine Lord's estate. With this thought in mind, they began to feel conflicted. However, Leng Ruoxue was completely unaware of the three old men's worries. Right now, all of her attention was on her closed-door cultivation. After explaining everything to them, Leng Ruoxue chatted with them for a while before bringing the demon back to her room. The next day, the two of them officially entered closed-door cultivation in the dream dust space. While Leng Ruoxue and the rest were in closed-door cultivation, the firmament was in an even more turbulent state. Countless small families disappeared in the torrent of history, but at the same time, countless families rose up. These were not within the scope of Leng Ruoxue and the rest's concern. They could ignore it, but the master of the Ning family and the others couldn't take it lightly. In the garden, the three beautiful uncles were all frowning, not knowing what they were thinking. However, as the sighs grew heavier, Flowing Maple, who was not far away from them, couldn't take it anymore and jumped up. "I say, you three old men, can you stop sighing all the time? It's just that the little girl went into seclusion. This was not a big deal. Do you have to act like this?" Lu Feng said with a face full of disdain. He truly thought that the three old men were depressed because they had not seen Leng Ruoxue for a long time. In fact, he was also a little depressed. He didn't expect that the wretched girl would choose to go into seclusion as soon as she returned, making him very bored, but he was also reluctant to leave this place. "You know nothing." The master of the Ning family shouted angrily and even cursed. "Little brat. Why don't you learn from Huang Er? Why are you always wandering around in front of us? Go back to the refining room and refine your weapons, I'm annoyed just by looking at you." The first elder also roared in anger. Ever since Luyue saw the medicinal ingredients that Shuer had specially left for them to refine pills, she had been hiding in the pill refining room with Shen Nua and had not come out. Only this fellow was idling around all day long, and they felt dizzy just looking at him. Lu Feng was completely speechless when he heard First Elder's words. Was he being angered by someone? Fortunately, Uncle Long hadn't said anything yet. Otherwise, he would have been depressed to death. However, not long after he thought of this, he saw Uncle Long take a sip of tea and then said in a slightly disdainful tone, "Little brat. Didn't Shuer also leave you a lot of ores? Why don't you go and forge? Although I don't know how to refine weapons, I know the quality of the materials. So, don't waste them." "Oh. If you don't want it, you can keep it for Shuer's ancestor and her master. By the way, Shuer's ancestor's master is called Mo Yen, right? I've heard that that fellow is a tool maniac. If he sees good materials, he definitely won't waste them like you." After Uncle Long finished speaking, he looked at Lu Feng with a disdainful and slightly sympathetic gaze, as if Lu Feng had done something he shouldn't have done. This made Lu Feng's heart burn with anger. However, he could not afford to offend this old man, so he could only accept it. With that thought in mind, Lu Feng's face darkened as he turned around and left the garden in a depressed mood. Looking at his back, Uncle Long couldn't help but ask, "Aren't we a little too heavy?" "I'm fine. That kid's skin is really thick." The first elder disapprovingly said. "Yes, it's fine. I've watched that kid grow up. He has a strong tolerance," Master Ning said. In fact, they couldn't care less about what Lu Feng was thinking. All their attention was on the God Lord's estate. "Little Ning, you should go back to the Ning family first." After hesitating for a long time, Uncle Long finally spoke his opinion. Although the presence of the master of the Ning family would make him more powerful, the strength of the Ning family would be greatly reduced, which was not what he wanted to see. "How can we do that? If they knew that I was here, the God Lord's estate wouldn't dare to come here so openly. If I leave, the God Lord's estate won't have so many people to care about." Master Ning objected. According to the Silver Rat King's report, many strange humans had come to the land of evil demons. However, those people were only loitering in the land of evil demons and had not come to Leng Ruoxu's territory. Therefore, it was hard for them to judge whether those people had been sent by the God Lord's estate. However, one thing was for sure. Those people had not taken any action so far because they were worried. Besides, that old geezer from the Wen family was also a cause for concern. If he was not here, Uncle Long would not be able to deal with the old geezer's attack. As long as our Divine Master doesn't come in person, I'm not afraid of the others. But if the Ning family doesn't have you, the family head, then there'll be a group of dragons without a leader. Uncle Long's words were very subtle. In fact, the more profound a family was, the easier it was for the enemy to take advantage of the loopholes. This was probably unavoidable for any big family. After all, there were too many people in the family, and there would always be one or two rats. Old Man Ning, I think Uncle Long's words are very reasonable. Why don't you go back to the Ning family and take a look? You don't have to worry too much about this place. Shuai'er's defensive formation is not to be trifled with. The Great Elder also tried to persuade Uncle Long. I promised Shuai'er that I would stay here and guard this place for her. Master Ning didn't say he would go back, nor did he say he wouldn't, but his meaning was clear. That was then and this is now. We didn't think that the Divine Lord estate would go so crazy over Huan Chen's disappearance, did we? The Great Elder sighed. Before Shuai'er went into closed-door cultivation, only a few small clans had been exterminated. However, almost half of the clans had already been killed. Although the various major powers of the Divine Realm had been trying to guess who the culprit was, they had not found any clues. Only they knew that the culprit was someone from the Divine Lord's estate. This only means that dream dust is extremely important to the God Lord. Uncle Long sighed. The Divine Realm was becoming more and more unstable, and he was very clear that the only one who could turn the situation around was that little girl Shuai'er. It's exactly because of this that I can't leave. Otherwise, if the Divine Lord finds out that Dream Dust has taken Shuai'er as his master, he'll definitely do something bad to her. The master of the Ning family said with a serious face. Don't worry. That woman won't know that Huan Chen is with Shuai'er. Uncle Long said with certainty. From the fact that she only dared to attack the small and medium-sized clans, it was clear that she did not want the Divine Realm to fall into chaos and blood to flow like rivers. She had only attacked some of the small and medium-sized clans, so it was probably more of a warning. Chapter 1938, A Stranger in the Demonic Land, 4, It's better to be safe than sorry. The master of the Ning family said stubbornly. He still didn't want to leave. You're the master of the Ning family. Although I understand your love for Shuai'er, you can't disappoint your own family. Those are your descendants. Uncle Long advised. All right then. I'll go back to take a look and come back as soon as possible. The master of the Ning family compromised. Don't be in a hurry to come back. The Ning family really needs you. I'm here, so you can rest assured. Uncle Long promised. Although the master of the Ning family nodded, he still decided to return as soon as possible. Then, the master of the Ning family teleported away. After he left, Uncle Long turned his gaze back to the first elder. Uncle Long, you're not thinking of driving me away, are you? The great elder said with a bitter smile. If there's nothing important at the Armament Guild headquarters, then you can stay. Uncle Long said indifferently. I'm fine. I'm very free. First elder quickly replied. At this time, a little silver-white mouse suddenly appeared in front of them out of thin air. This little mouse was the Silver Rat King. Uncle Long, Great Elder. The Silver Rat King greeted them very politely. The two of them nodded and then began to listen carefully to the Silver Rat King's report. Uncle Long. Great Elder, my subordinates found that there are more people coming to the land of demons today. However, the strange thing is that they don't seem to be with the people from before. Not only that, but they also had a conflict. It doesn't look like they're acting. The Silver Rat King carefully reported the situation. Conflict? Is it serious? Uncle Long asked curiously. It's not too serious, it was caused by a female human. The Silver Rat King said honestly. However, the way it addressed the female human made the two feel deeply awkward. Little Silver Mouse. You can call us human women, but don't call us female humans. First Elder couldn't help but remind. However, was this the main point? You don't have to listen to him. Just call him whatever you like. Continue. Uncle Long looked at the First Elder with disdain and urged. Ah. Uncle Long's disdainful gaze made the First Elder feel deeply depressed. However, Uncle Long's seniority was higher than his, so he could only accept it. All right. The Silver Rat King was very happy and continued, that female human doesn't look that good. I really don't understand why those men would fight for her. They really have bad taste. Get to the main point. Hearing the Rat King's words, Uncle Long gritted his teeth in anger. He didn't want to listen to the Rat King's analysis, he wanted to know the cause of the matter. This is the main point. The Silver Rat King blinked its eyes and said with an innocent face. Then why did they have a conflict? Uncle Long asked with wide eyes. I told you. The Silver Rat King asked in a daze. What did you just say? You only said that the woman was not pretty and that there were men fighting for her, but you didn't say the cause of the fight. Uncle Long reminded him through gritted teeth. Oh. The cause of the fight was naturally a perverted dispute. A group of people took a fancy to that female human, and the group that the female human belonged to felt deeply humiliated, so the two sides couldn't agree on a word and started fighting. The Silver Rat King patiently explained, but Uncle Long and the First Elder were both speechless. Now, they deeply felt that this Silver Rat King's ability to express itself was too poor. They really didn't know how that little girl Schwer had communicated with it, AI. The two of them sighed deeply and looked at each other helplessly. They could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. I'm telling you. That female human was very casual, and a few male humans had an affair with her, sigh. I won't tell you the details. In short, my good subordinates are going to be taught bad by them. The Silver Rat King sighed again. Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the Great Elder almost went crazy. What did the Silver Rat King report to them? They weren't interested in this kind of gossip, but judging from the Silver Rat King's appearance, they probably didn't find anything of value. Thinking up to this point, Uncle Long warned with a cautious expression, Silver Rat King, tell your subordinates to keep a close eye on them. If there's anything unusual, they must immediately report it. Don't worry, Uncle Long. Even when they're relieving themselves, my little brother is still watching them. We won't let them leave our sight. The Silver Rat King said smugly. Hee, the Silver Rat clan had nothing but silver rats. There were hundreds of thousands of silver rats scattered all over the land of evil demons. How could they not keep an eye on those humans? And this was also the thing that it was most self-conscious about. Then you guys continue to work hard. Uncle Long wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said speechlessly. Hee. I promised to complete the mission. The Silver Rat King said hurriedly, and then disappeared into thin air just as it had come. After it left, Uncle Long and the Great Elder looked at each other again, and the helplessness in their eyes deepened. At this time, the strangers in the land of demons were still unaware that they had entered the Silver Rat's sight. In fact, even if they had discovered that there were silver rats around them, they would not have thought that those silver rats had come to monitor them. The land of the evil demons was filled with mountains and forests. The mountain that Len Ruoxue and the others were on was the highest and most dangerous one. There were many other mountains of different sizes surrounding the mountain. At this moment, a group of people was gathered at the foot of one of the mountains. Chapter 1939, Before the Battle, 1, there were about 20 of them, each wearing different clothes, but their auras were the same gloomy, cold, and with a hint of blood. Although they tried their best to hide it, the ruthlessness that inadvertently leaked out of their bodies could not be hidden. At this time, they were carefully setting up camp at the foot of an unremarkable hill. Although they had been in the land of demons for a while, these people did not dare to act rashly. "Boss, when are we going to act?" A young man who was starting a fire looked at his captain and could not help but ask. "I'll wait for the right time." The team leader who spoke was a middle-aged man. He looked even more unfeeling and had a deep scar on the left side of his face that ran from his brow to his chin. He was only a divine lord. Actually, if Len Ruoxue was here, she would definitely be able to recognize this man. This was because he was none other than the leader of the men in black whom Len Ruoxue and the rest had met in the mystic realm, Black One. However, other than their temperament, Black One's appearance and cultivation level were different from the leader of the men in black whom Len Ruoxue and the others had met. They looked more like a small team that had come to the land of evil demons to train. However, in reality, they had all taken the appearance-changing pill. After saying those 3 words, Black One was deeply depressed again. Ever since he failed his mission, his position in the Lord's heart had plummeted. Now, he was even sent by the Lord to carry out this small task of stalking. This made him, who had always been proud and arrogant, feel very conflicted and painful. However, he was already being merciful by the Lord to be able to keep his life. Therefore, although he had complaints in his heart, he did not dare to say it out loud. As for his current subordinates, they were assigned to him by his Lord, but he knew very well that these people were not completely loyal to him. As for who they were, he did not want to know. In short, he was very low-key now. "We still have to wait for the right time. We've been here for a long time," the young man said with slight dissatisfaction after hearing Black One's words. He had wanted to make a contribution for a long time, but his team leader kept stopping them from taking action. This made him even angrier. He felt that his team leader was too useless. Hence, he did not hide his dissatisfaction when he saw Black One's expression. "So what? Don't forget, we're only here to scout. We only need to send the information back, and the Lord will decide when to take action." He knew very well that these people were not very convinced of his abilities. However, having experienced life and death, he had long accepted all of this. Even in his eyes, these guys were reckless. He really did not know who had trained them to be so impatient. "You're right, but I think it's the best time for us to make a move. Don't forget, Master Ning has already left," the young man said, unwilling to admit defeat. "So what if Master Ning has left? Don't tell me that you think that you can deal with Len Ruoxue and the others once Master Ning leaves," Black One said with a hint of disdain. These fellows who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth thought that Len Ruoxue was easy to deal with. Having crossed swords with Len Ruoxue and the others, he was very clear on how difficult it was to deal with them. There was also that Uncle Long, who was not to be trifled with. Even if all of them were to join forces, they would not be able to take care of Uncle Long alone. Thinking of Uncle Long, he felt conflicted. They were both Reverend God-level cultivators, but why was there such a huge gap? He admitted that Uncle Long had lived longer than him and had a higher seniority, but the difference in strength between the two shouldn't be that big, right? Not to mention Uncle Long, he wasn't even confident that he could win against that demonic man. With this thought in mind, he wasn't just conflicted. However, the small group of people he brought didn't know what he was struggling with. After hearing his words, one of them shouted in dissatisfaction, "I don't even dare to try, isn't this too cowardly? Captain, we're just boosting his morale and lowering our own." "That's right, those people are only God-tier masters. If we don't even dare to fight against God-tier masters, how can we have the face to serve His Majesty if word gets out?" Someone echoed. "Captain, you're a reverent god, are you afraid of a few God-tier masters?" More and more people began to question it, causing a chain reaction. Black One frowned, but he was unwilling to continue paying attention to them. However, the more Black One acted like this, the more dissatisfaction they had for him. In the end, Many of them were not polite with their words. Team leader, it seems like you've been scared out of your wits by Leng Ruoxue and the others. What qualifications do you have to be our captain if you're so timid? We want to protest to the master and change the captain. Master Black 19. I suggest you be our captain. A cacophony of voices broke out at the foot of the mountain. Black 1 became even calmer after hearing the words. As for Black 19, he was the vice-captain of the operation. He was a divine emperor. In the entire team, his position and strength were second only to Black 1. However, Black 19's mind was very clear. He knew that he could not be compared to Black 1 in any aspect. After all, Black 1 used to be the most outstanding among them and was their role model. Although Black 1 had made the Lord unhappy now, who knew when Black 1 would be favored by the Lord again? This was not certain. Therefore, he only dared to watch others hit Black 1 when he was down, but he did not dare to have the slightest intention of doing so. Not only that, he had to take the initiative to express goodwill to Black 1. At the thought of this, he took the initiative to walk to Black 1's side and sat down with an awkward expression. Captain, they're just bored to death, that's why they're speaking without thinking. Please don't take it to heart. I won't argue with them. You go and tell them that whoever is dissatisfied with me can complain to the Lord, or they can leave my team. Don't worry, I won't make things difficult for them in front of his Lord. Black 1 said coldly. He was extremely disgusted by the actions of these people. Although he had lost his master's favor, as a reverent god, he was not someone who could be humiliated as he pleased. The dignity of a reverent god could not be violated. Captain. Black 19 was still trying to persuade Black 1. After all, they were all in the same boat. If they failed their mission, they would all be punished by their lord. He did not want to be implicated by these idiots. However, his subordinates did not understand his good intentions. Instead, they planned to leave. Some of them even tried to persuade Black 19. Master Black 19, please leave with us. There's no future in following such a useless captain. Someone tried his best to persuade Black 19. Black 19's face darkened immediately. Chapter 1940, Before the Battle, 2, Fuck. These dogs didn't know what was good for them. It was fine if they wanted to leave, but they actually wanted to drag him down with them. Would he be so brainless to argue with them? I won't leave the captain. Black 19 said with a serious expression. Lord Black 19. The man wanted to continue to persuade Black 19, but he was interrupted by Black 19. Don't say any more. I won't leave with you. I'll stick with the captain. The person who was trying to persuade Black 19 did not bother to say anything more when he saw how stubborn Black 19 was. However, Black 1 could not help but look at him in a different light after hearing what Black 19 said. He did not expect that someone would still stay by his side when he was at his lowest point. No matter what Black 19's intentions were, he had to owe Black 19 a favor. However, he still did not express any important opinions. When he saw that almost all the members of the team had left, he said to Black 19 calmly, you should leave with them. You really don't have a future with me. But it's very safe to follow the captain. I know what's best for me. Black 19 said with a smile. However, Black 19 felt a little depressed. There were only 5 people left from the original team of more than 20 people. Except for him and the team leader, the 3 weakest people were left. What about you guys? Why did you stay? Then, Black 1's gaze shifted to the other 3. Captain, we're too weak. If we stay with them, we'll be looked down upon. So, we'd rather stay with you than with them. The 3 of them answered honestly. Since you've chosen to stay, I'll naturally guarantee your safety. However, you must obey my orders unconditionally. Black 1 nodded. It was good that the people who were left behind were self-aware. He didn't want disobedient subordinates. Yes. The 4 of them, including Black 19, responded immediately. Just like that, after a small internal cajoling, there were only 4 people left by Black One's side. This situation was naturally passed to Uncle Long and the others through the silver rats. A few days after this little interlude ended, those people who had originally left returned. However, they didn't come back on their own this time. The leader of the team took the initiative to greet Black One when he saw him. Black One, long time no see. What are you doing here? Black One frowned and asked the tall man in front of him. There were 10 leaders among the secret guards of the Black Generation. They were called Black 1 to Black 10. The man in front of him was ranked 4th among them. He was also a hierarch and was the one who was the most unconvinced of him. However, although they were both hierarch experts, he was no match for him. Otherwise, he would not have been ranked below him. This was also regarded as the greatest humiliation by Black 4. Therefore, as long as he had the opportunity, he would not be able to defeat him. Hey Si would definitely hit him when he was down. His lord sent me to assist you. Hey Si said with a smile. Assist? Black One sneered. He was not a 3-year-old child. There was no way he would believe that. Yes, the Lord said that he'll be in charge of everything here for the time being, and you must listen to my arrangements. Black 4 smiled evilly. In fact, his Lord had not only sent one team to the demonic lands. Other than Black One's team, he was in charge of the other teams. However, Black One was not aware of this situation. All right. Black One nodded. Since this was his Lord's intention, he did not have any doubts. Seeing that Black One was so easy to talk to, Black 4's heart was greatly satisfied. Then, he waved his hand and his subordinates behind him immediately started setting up the tent and starting a fire. Black 4 took the initiative to sit beside Black One, trying to get closer to him. Black One and Black 4 were chatting nonchalantly. Black 4 only revealed his main purpose after a bunch of nonsense. I've decided to launch a night attack. Black 4 suddenly said. Although he did not explicitly state where he was going to attack, Black One understood immediately. However, he did not want to blindly get involved with Black 4, so he simply pretended to be stupid. Attack where? Do you want to attack the beastie here? I advise you not to. If you exterminate all the beasts here, the Beast Clan will not let this matter rest. Black One reminded him with a heavy heart. What I meant was to attack Leng Ruoxue and the others at night. Hey Siming said. Are you confident? Black One could no longer play dumb. Of course, but you need to join hands with me. Black 4 said calmly. In fact, he looked for Black One to be his hired thug. Who asked Black One's strength to be above his? If he did not need to use him now, when would he need him? As long as we join forces, you'll have absolute confidence. Don't blame me for not warning you. If you beat the grass and alert the snake, they will be on guard, and then it will ruin the master's plan. Black One said very cautiously. Although he did not want to get involved with Black 4 in this matter, he was also clear that Black 4 would never let go of such a good fighter. Don't worry, if I didn't have absolute confidence, I wouldn't have come to you. Hey Si said confidently. Does the Lord know about this? Black One asked. Of course, without his Lord's permission, would I dare to do this? Hey Si raised his eyebrows and said. Although Master Ning has left, Uncle Long is still in that house. I think you've heard of how powerful Uncle Long is. After some thought, Black One reminded him again. He was still considered guilty, so he naturally did not want to be implicated by Black 4. This was because he had a bad feeling that Black 4 would mess up the matter. No matter how powerful that Uncle Long is, he's only one person. Can't we deal with him together? Black One, you've always been bold and cautious, but ever since the last incident, you've become more and more timid. This is not like you. Hey Si said with a face full of disappointment. However, the meaning of his words clearly contained provocation. He was still bringing up a sore spot. Just take it that I'm a coward. I've already warned you. Black One said disapprovingly. If Black 4 thought that a few sarcastic words could anger him, then he would be disappointed. Black 1 then added, "Since my lord has asked me to follow your arrangements, I'll do as you say. When you've arranged everything, just tell me what I should do. I'll go back and rest." After saying that, Black 1 entered the tent without looking back. Seeing that Black 1 had left just like that, although Black 4 was a little angry, he could do nothing about it. However, his lackey beside him directly expressed his dissatisfaction with Black 1, "Lord Black 4, this Black 1 is really getting more and more presumptuous. He actually didn't give you any face. You must not let him off." Chapter 1941, Before the Battle, 3, Is Black 1 something you can call? Hearing his subordinate's words, Hey Si's face turned cold and he shouted angrily, "Fuck." He could be called Black 1, but what right did these small fries have? Although Black 1 was not favored by his lord, Black 4 still regarded Black 1 as his biggest competitor. Hence, he was the only one who could be dissatisfied with Black 1. The others could not, let alone a small lackey. More importantly, Black 1 was a reverent god after all. If he allowed a small fry to trample on a reverent god's dignity, wouldn't that be a slap to his own face? "My lord, the subordinate who wanted to please Hey Si saw that his flattery had landed on the horse's leg and was suddenly at a loss. When Hey Si saw his cowardly appearance, he was even angrier. Get lost. Get lost, don't let me see you." Hey Si shooed him away like a fly. After he finished speaking, he also entered his own tent out of sight and out of mind. The next day, Black 4 told Black 1 his detailed plan. Then, they stayed in place and waited for the right moment. A few days later, at night, the sky in the Devil's Land suddenly changed. The sky had been clear for tens of thousands of miles before, but now it was gloomy. From day on, the sky was so dark that it seemed to be filled with water. When it was late at night, it was so dark that one could not even see their own fingers, but it did not rain. And such weather was also very suitable for crime. Hey Si, who was crouching at the foot of the hill, looked at the dark night sky and felt satisfied. He had been waiting for this day for several days. He had finally waited for it. In that case, he must not waste it. Therefore, he made up his mind to hit the target with one strike. After changing into the black clothes for the operation, they followed Hey Si's signal and quietly headed towards the mountain peak where Lengruoshua was. At the same time, there was another group of people who had their eyes on the sky tonight. They were sneakily moving towards Lengruoshua and the others. At this moment, the Leng family's main courtyard was in complete silence. Other than Lengruoshua and the rest who were in closed-door cultivation, Uncle Long and the rest had also gone back to their rooms to rest. It was as if they didn't sense the impending danger and were sleeping soundly. However, in fact, Uncle Long was not in the room at all. At this moment, he was in the universal bracelet. Through the light screen that Green Vessel had set up, he was drinking tea and eating snacks while admiring every movement in the land of demons. "Uncle Long, there are at least 3 hierarch experts. What should we do?" Qing Ju glanced at the light screen and said to Uncle Long. "I can pin down 2 of them, and you can only be responsible for the other one." Uncle Long chuckled. Their hearts were really connected. 2 forces had chosen to attack them on the same day. If Uncle Long hadn't known that they hadn't contacted each other, he would have thought that they had discussed this beforehand. "Do you want to tell Big Sister?" Qing Ju asked uncertainly. Although he really wanted to let his sister know that someone was trying to attack them, he did not want to disturb his sister while she was in seclusion. He was at a loss. "Why should I tell the little girl?" "Don't tell her," Uncle Long said quickly. He had to play to his heart's content while the little girl was not around. Seeing through Uncle Long's thoughts, Qing Ju looked at Uncle Long with a smile that was not a smile. He pitied those people a little in his heart. Moreover, it was obvious that if the 2 forces that wanted to attack them at night knew about Uncle Long's thoughts, they would definitely be depressed. "Qing Ju, we can't rely on the little girl for everything, can we?" We can settle this small matter, so let's not trouble her and let her go into seclusion. Seeing Qingju's expression, Uncle Long tried to cover up and explain. Yes, Uncle Long's words make sense. However, we don't have many people that can be used on our side, so, Qingju did not finish his sentence. However, his meaning was already very clear. There were very few people on their side that could participate in the battle. In fact, the Old Phoenix and the Dark Knight race were not in seclusion, but they could not see the light yet. Therefore, there were very few beasts that could be used by Uncle Long. It doesn't matter. It's enough for them to have the treasures. Uncle Long said as he looked at the small beasts lying in front of him. Although these little fellows weren't very strong, their explosive power was astonishing. With their combined attack, they could easily deal with a hierarch. Hence, Uncle Long was very confident. Mmh. With us here, Uncle Long can be at ease. Leave the remaining reverent god to us. We guarantee that he won't be able to leave this place alive, and well, let him know why the flowers are so red. Baby said excitedly. It could be seen that its claws were itching again. Ah! Seeing the excitement on the babies' faces, Uncle Long doubted whether he had made the right decision. These little guys were clearly the kind of people who wanted to see the world in chaos. Hee hee. Uncle Long, I wish us a happy cooperation. At this time, Baby raised its little paw again and high-fived Uncle Long. Kun and the other beasts also followed suit. Happy cooperation. Ling, remember to cast the invisibility spell on us. Uncle Long said. N. Ling nodded obediently. Suddenly, the Silver Rat King appeared in front of them. Uncle Long, I have important news. The Silver Rat King said directly. Speak. Uncle Long nodded. The beasts in the land of demons knew that someone was going to attack us, so they volunteered to help. I've already settled them in the garden. The Silver Rat King carefully said. After all, it was its own decision, so it was afraid that Uncle Long would blame it. After it finished speaking, it even timidly lowered its little head, not daring to look at Uncle Long. You told them? Uncle Long's face was expressionless. Yes, I just mentioned it casually. They were all very enthusiastic and mainly asked for help. I was too embarrassed to reject them, so I brought back the beastie they sent to help. The Silver Rat King said honestly. After it finished speaking, its little heart was still thumping. It jumped around wildly. In fact, it didn't just say it casually. When those beasts expressed their willingness to help, it didn't want to refuse them at all and brought them back directly. But now it was a little afraid that Uncle Long would blame it for making its own decision. After all, when its master was not around, Uncle Long was the most important person. There will be no next time. Uncle Long warned. He had never thought of asking the beasts in the land of demons for help because he was afraid of implicating them. After all, the opponent was too powerful for the beasts here to fight against. Once they were involved, they would definitely have a lot of trouble in the future. But then he thought about it again. If the beasts in the land of demons were more united because of this, it would be a great thing. In that case, the enemy would have to think twice before taking out their anger on the innocent beastmen. Yes, yes. Seeing that Uncle Long didn't blame it for being meddlesome, the Silver Rat King was completely at ease. In fact, it also had its own selfish motives. It should be known that ever since it was born, it had been living in the land of demons, accompanying the beasts here all day long. Now that it had found such a good master, it naturally hoped that the other beasts would also have such a good opportunity. Therefore, after it knew of the other party's plan, it had informed Uncle Long and the others at once, as well as the beast clan in the land of demons. When the beasts found out that someone was trying to take advantage of Leng Ruoxue, they did not disappoint it. They all fought to be the first to help. Seeing that they were so understanding, the Silver Rat King was naturally happy. At least its careful thinking had not been in vain. As for what would happen to them in the future, it could only depend on their luck. After that, Uncle Long discussed the details with Qing Ju and left the bracelet with the little beasts. When they arrived at the garden, they saw that the garden was already filled with many mimicry little beasts. The first elder and the others had also walked out of their rooms. It was obvious that they had already received the news from the silver rats. Uncle Long. What do you need me to do? The first elder asked after seeing Uncle Long. You don't need to do anything. You just need to stay here and watch the show. Uncle Long's words caused the enthusiastic great elder to immediately turn listless. Why? First elder's eyes were wide open, his face filled with dissatisfaction. Do you still need to ask? Of course, it's because you're too old. If you go out and fight with those people, you'll be a hindrance. If you get injured, we'll have to take care of you, so don't go out and drag us down. Before Uncle Long could answer the first elder's question, Lu Feng interrupted. Upon hearing Flowing Maple's shameless words, first elder was so angry that he blew his beard and glared at him. You stinky brat, you actually dare to despise me. I think you're tired of living. I'm telling the truth. Of course, he said that on purpose. After all, these two old men had been making things difficult for him over the past few days. You unfilial grandson, first elder pointed at Lu Feng with a trembling finger. He was so angry that he could not speak. Grandpa. Calm down. Seeing this, Lu Yue hurriedly coaxed. Yes, calm down. You won't have a chance in tonight's battle. Uncle Long said with a smile. Why? Upon hearing Uncle Long's words, none of them could remain calm. They had long been prepared, but now Uncle Long was telling them that they didn't need to do anything. This was too much of a blow, wasn't it? They were not convinced. You're either alchemists or artifact masters. You're all important targets of protection, so I have to protect you well. Tonight, only US beasts will attack, so you can go back to your rooms and sleep. Uncle Long said. After that, he gave Ling a look. Ling understood and cast an invisibility spell on all the beasts. Uncle Long then led the beasts that had disappeared from the sight of First Elder and the others out of the courtyard. Chapter 1942, Waiting for a Rabbit by a Tree Stump, 1. As they watched Uncle Long and the other beasts leave, the First Elder and the others in the garden were completely depressed. They had been looked down upon. Although they were only alchemists and blacksmiths, they also had the strength of divine emperors. He wasn't so bad that he needed someone to protect him, was he? The few of them couldn't help but think. Uncle Long must be afraid that we'll steal their opponent. That's why he didn't let us out. After some thought, Flowing Maple said with certainty. That's obvious. The First Elder said in a bad mood. Why don't we sneak out and help? Flowing Maple suggested. That's not good. Uncle Long is not to be trifled with. If he finds out that we don't listen to him, we'll be in deep trouble. Shen Nua said with a face full of fear. You really are a coward. Shen Nua's words caused Lu Feng to growl in a low voice, as if he had expected better from her. Are you not afraid of Uncle Long? Shen Nua's eyes widened as she asked indifferently. Of course. I'm afraid too. Lu Feng's first few words were full of vigor, but they softened in the end. When he thought about the old whale's intimidation, his little heart trembled uncontrollably. How could he not be afraid? When Shen Nua heard Lu Feng's reply, she could not help but roll her eyes, and gave him a "then why are you still scolding me?" Then, he also became depressed. I think we should listen to Uncle Long and go back to our rooms to sleep. Lu Yue said after some thought. Kid, what's your opinion? At this time, the First Elder's eyes turned to the Jungle, who was standing in the corner like a punching bag, and asked with an expectant face. They couldn't think of a good idea, so he really hoped that this little guy could come up with a good idea that would satisfy both sides. Hearing the Great Elder's question, Lin Mu was so nervous that he didn't know what to say. Woo-woo. Why are there so many important people around the young miss? He was under a lot of pressure. Ever since the end of the elite competition, he had followed Ling Ruoxue and the others to the land of demons. However, when he found out that the people around his young miss were all influential figures in the god realm, he was so nervous that he was at a loss on what to do. Moreover, his young miss had left him to Her Excellency Lu Yue and Her Excellency Shen Nuo. After that, she no longer cared about his life or death. Therefore, he felt that he was living in deep waters and suffering every day. In fact, the two sirs, Shen Nuo and Lu Yu, treated him very well, and even treated him like a disciple, teaching him with all their heart and soul. It could be said that the two of them were even more attentive to him than their own young miss. But for some reason, when he saw the two sirs, as well as the first elder and Sir Lu Feng, his heart was so nervous that it was about to jump into his throat. Looking at the state of the forest, the great elder felt helpless. He sighed and said, "Little guy, why are you so nervous? We won't eat you." "It is. Lin Lin, since the little girl has handed you over to us, you're our disciple from now on. How can you be so nervous in front of Master? Are we really that scary?" Lu Yue also said with a little dissatisfaction. "Ah!" Lin Jie cried out in shock when he heard that. Then, he looked at Lu Yue as if he had seen a ghost. Is Mr. Lu Yue joking? He was very clear that his aptitude wasn't at the top among alchemists, so he didn't believe that Lu Yu and Shen Nuo would have the thought of taking him in as a disciple. "What ah? Remember my words, you will be our disciple from now on." Lu Yue saw through Jungle's thoughts and patted his head. "Your Excellency Lu Yue, I am afraid I can't be your disciple." Seeing that the brawler referee seemed to be serious, Lin Lin quickly said. "Give me a reason. Could it be that with our status, we're not worthy of being your master?" Lu Yue deliberately put on a straight face and said with a hint of displeasure. "No. It's because I've already recognized young miss as my master, so I can't join the Alchemist Guild headquarters anymore, and naturally can't be your disciple." Lin Lin explained. Although he was a registered alchemist of the Alchemist Guild headquarters, he was not an exclusive alchemist of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Therefore, he was very clear that he could not be a disciple of those two esteemed figures. Otherwise, he would probably have to join the Alchemist Guild headquarters and become an exclusive alchemist of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. However, he did not want to do so now. "Brat, joining the Alchemist Guild headquarters and being our disciple are two different things, so you don't need to worry about this. You only need to tell us now, are you willing to be our disciple or not?" Shen Nuo said a little anxiously. Actually, he wanted to take this kid as his disciple mainly because of two considerations. One was that this kid did indeed have a drive that no one else had, and the other was that he hoped to get closer to Ling Ruoxue. Lu Yue obviously had similar thoughts as well. Originally, the two of them had been arguing endlessly over the forest, and later on, they had come to an agreement to take him as their disciple together. Ah! Shen Nuo's words stunned Jungle. There was such a good thing. Was this a gift from the heavens? However, he, who had always been calm, was hit by this sudden good luck and did not dare to easily agree. Seeing that the forest was hesitating, First Elder quickly said, "Brat, what are you hesitating for? This was a good thing that others could only dream of. Besides, with them as your backing, Shuer will be happy for you." Lin Lin saw First Elder mention Ling Ruoxue, and he thought about it for a while before nodding his head in agreement. Then, he even respectfully bowed to Shen Nuo and Lu Yue as a master and disciple. The two of them were so happy that they broke out into smiles, and kept calling out "Good disciple. Good disciple." Seeing how happy and harmonious they were, Flowing Maple was truly speechless. This is a little off topic, okay? Aren't we discussing how to go out and help? How did it become taking in disciples? He could not understand. I say, do you know what we were discussing just now? Lu Feng rolled his eyes and asked, unable to take it anymore. What's wrong? First Elder and the others looked at Lu Feng in confusion. Aren't we thinking of a reason to go out and help? Don't go off topic. Flowing Maple growled gloomily. Oh. Hee hee. I'm just taking in a disciple in passing. It won't take up too much time. Liyue said, a little embarrassed. It was indeed convenient. He didn't know why he had suddenly taken Lin Lin as his disciple. By the way, Lin Lin was too nervous in front of them, so they had brought it up directly. Otherwise, they had wanted to say hello to the little girl. But now, they had taken Lin Lin as their disciple without saying hello. Presumably, the little girl wouldn't mind. Now that you've taken in all your disciples, can we think of a good idea? Flowing Maple rolled his eyes again, truly speechless. I really can't think of any good ideas. What about you guys? Liyue said awkwardly. To put it bluntly, he was afraid of Uncle Long. After he finished speaking, the few people present began to look at each other, big eyes staring at small eyes. Chapter 1943, Waiting for a Rabbit by a Tree Stump, 2. At this time, Uncle Long had already left the house with Baby and the other beasts. They had each found a place to ambush the enemy. Their original plan was to attack in secret and take them down one by one. However, with the help of the beast men from the land of demons, they changed their strategy slightly and decided to attack at the same time to catch the other party off guard. According to the information from the Silver Rats, there were two groups of about 500 people. Apart from the three reverent gods, there were dozens of divine emperors. Most of the others were divine kings and only a few were divine lords. On the other hand, there was only Uncle Long, a hierarch, 5 divine emperor-level beasts, and 10 divine king-level beasts on the beasties' side. Most of them were divine lord-level beasts. The difference in combat strength was obvious. After knowing the difference in combat strength, the beastie who came to help was a little worried. It wasn't that they didn't want to send someone stronger to help, but their own beastie simply couldn't do it. Although there were many beasties in the land of evil demons, none of them had the strength of a godly venerable rank. Not only that, even beasties with the strength of a godly emperor were rare. All this time, they had been able to gain a firm foothold in the land of evil demons mostly because of their unity. After all, the supreme powers looked down on the land of evil demons and the weaker factions did not dare to provoke them. Thus, they had set down their roots in this place. After a long time, no force was willing to come here and disturb them. After all, this was not an ideal territory for humans. This time, not only had many strangers come to the land of evil demons, there were even a few reverent god-level spirit beasts. This made them feel extremely nervous and they treated these strangers as if they were facing a great enemy. Although these people had come for Leng Ruoxue and the rest, it was hard to guarantee that they would not have any other thoughts. Therefore, in the hearts of many of the spirit beasts, these strangers were no longer just enemies of Leng Ruoxue and the rest. Uncle Long, the enemy is stronger than us. Do you have any good ideas? The Fire Wolf clan's Grand Elder asked worriedly. He was also the strongest in the Fire Wolf clan. Baby, tell them our plan. Uncle Long looked at the treasure and said with a smile. All right. Our plan is to wait for the rabbit. After Baby said that, he took out dozens of silk threads thinner than hair from his storage ring. Those threads were dark gray in color, and if one didn't carefully identify them in the dark night, they would be completely ignored. Moreover, the threads only looked thin, but they were actually very strong and sharp. These are your weapons against your enemies. Baby said after he had sent the thread down. Ah. This is a weapon. All the beasts looked at the thin silk thread in their claws, their faces full of uncertainty. They really couldn't understand what the use of this small silk thread was. Moreover, it was too beastie using one. Wasn't this a little too thrifty? Right. This was a weapon. Furthermore, it's the most powerful weapon to defeat the enemy. Baby said with a mysterious look. Baby, don't keep us in suspense, just tell us. Huoku said anxiously. She was very curious about this thin thread. Hee hee. Don't you have two beastie and one thread? Now, listen to my command. Each of you, stand on one side and straighten the string in your hands. Baby instructed. Oh. When the beasts heard this, they immediately split into two sides and stood in a straight line. However, they still didn't quite understand Baby's intention. Seeing this, Baby could only give them a demonstration. You guys look carefully. After Baby finished speaking, he walked to a thin thread and pretended not to see it. He was tripped by the thread and fell to the ground. Then, Baby jumped up and said, "Do you understand? I want you to use this line to trip the enemies." And then, the beasts understood what was going on, but what would happen after they tripped? They were thinking that those people wouldn't be fooled so easily. After all, they were all cultivators. They knew how vigilant cultivators were. Your task is to trip them up. However, you have to act according to the situation. Don't just stand there stupidly and don't move. That way, the other party won't be affected. It's the silver rat's problem. Bao Bao laughed evilly. This time, he would definitely make sure that those guys would not be able to return. Then, it took out countless small porcelain bottles and poured out the pills inside, giving them to the silver rats. It ordered, after they fell to the ground, you guys took the opportunity to throw these drugs into their mouths. However, you guys have to be careful. MMH. I promise to complete the mission. The Silver Rat King raised its little claws above its head and saluted on behalf of the silver rats. As for the 3 Reverend God level experts, leave them to us. Baby continued. Baby, those 3 are Reverend God level. Why don't I help you? The chief elder of the Fire Wolf clan said. He felt that it was a waste to ask him to cut the thread. After all, he was a divine emperor level beast. No need. If there are too many beasts, it won't be able to be used, don't worry. We can handle it, but after you've completed your mission, if you want to help, they'll be more than happy to. Baby didn't make it too clear, but they had to complete the mission first. Alright then. Well, listen to you, but are you sure you don't need to inform Miss Ling about this? The Grand Elder of the Fire Wolf clan asked. No need. My cute master is in closed-door cultivation, don't disturb her. Baby said with absolute certainty. The Great Elder of the Fire Wolf clan nodded and said, since that's the case, it'll take them to their positions and wait for the opponents to come. It truly felt that this battle was too easy to fight. It had been prepared to get injured, but now it seemed that their work was very easy. Moreover, the battles between beasts had always been straightforward and direct. It was the first time they had encountered someone who used schemes and intrigues to plot against their opponent. At the thought of this, the way it looked at the treasure changed. As expected of the fox race, they had many schemes. The Fire Wolf clan's head elder secretly thought to himself. Following that, it led the beasts to find a pleasing position and sat down on the ground. Some of the beasts even crossed their legs, their expressions extremely relaxed. However, the silk threads in their hands were all pulled straight. The dark gray silk threads flickered with an intimidating cold light in the dark night sky. Seeing this, Ling cast a few spells and the silk threads were immediately hidden. In the quiet night, it was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers. The night sky was so gloomy that it made people feel depressed. However, at this moment, 2 different teams were moving towards the Leng family's main mansion at the same time. Soon, a team arrived. Chapter 1944, Waiting for a Rabbit by a Tree Stump, 3, Looking at the tall mansion in front of them, the team became more cautious. Hui Wu, you go scout the path. Hey Si ordered as he glanced at the quiet main residence. Yes. A man in black replied. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the Leng family's main residence vigilantly. The man in black who was called Hui Wu was observing his surroundings as he walked. At this moment, the invisible beasts were not far from him, but he could not see them at all. The Fire Wolf clan's first elder, who was the closest to him, saw the opportunity and gave his partner a look. Then, they extended the silk thread in their claws to Hui Wu's feet. Suddenly, only a plop was heard. Hui Wu fell to the ground in an extremely unsightly posture. Arg! It hurts. Hui Wu, who had fallen to the ground, could not help but cry out in pain. He stretched out his hand and touched his leg that had tripped and hurt, but he felt that his hand was wet and a little sticky. This is the smell of blood. It can't be wrong. Hui Wu was very certain. Although he did not know why he had fallen for no reason, there was no doubt that his leg was injured. At this time, the little silver mouse standing in front of him looked at the small pill in its claw and received a, "Baby, don't do anything, look." It forcibly resisted the urge to throw the pill into Hui Wu's mouth. Therefore, Hui Wu also escaped a disaster. However, when Hei Si heard Hui Wu's cry, he could not help but curse in his heart. What an idiot! Did they forget what they were here for? He actually dared to scream. Don't you know that this will alert the enemy? Black 4 was extremely dissatisfied with Hui Wu's actions. Originally, he thought that Hui Wu was his trusted aide, so he wanted to give Hui Wu a chance to perform. However, who knew that Hui Wu would screw up? At this moment, he even had the thought of swallowing Hui Wu alive. Especially when he saw Black 1's half-smile expression, Black 4's heart was even more furious. Idiot! Hurry up and get back here. Hei Si coldly transmitted his voice. Yes. Hui Wu heard his boss' unfriendly tone and limped back to the team while enduring the pain. Upon seeing Gray 5's expression, Black 1 asked with a concerned look on his face, "What's going on? Did you fall very badly?" "It's not heavy." Hui Wu lowered his head and said in a small voice, but his heart was still beating. It would be strange if it wasn't heavy, it was simply painful to death. In fact, he didn't know why he cried out. To be honest, since he became the Lord's secret guard, he had suffered minor injuries and serious injuries, but he had never cried out like he did just now when he was on a mission. He knew that he had committed a big taboo, but he really didn't mean to. If it's not heavy, why did you scream? When Hei Si heard this, he growled in anger. I didn't mean it, Lord Hei Si. Hui Wu quickly said. All right. What's the point of blaming him? Black 1 tried to smooth things over. After he finished speaking, he even took the initiative to hand a pill to Hui Wu. After Hui Wu received it, he looked at Black 1 gratefully and said, "Thank you, Lord Black 1." After he finished speaking, he ate the pill and stood aside, as if waiting for Hei Si's punishment. Only you can pretend to be a good person. Black 4 was extremely displeased when he saw Black 1's actions. I'm doing this for your good. In order to ensure that our operation is foolproof, we must unite as one. Black 1 said indifferently. In fact, he was very willing to be a good person now. As for the bad person, let Black 4 be the bad person. Knowing that Black 1 was right, Black 4 did not go against him. Instead, he took the initiative to ask, "What do we do next?" "You're the commander, I'll listen to you." Black 1 said with a smile. "You want to be a hands-off shopkeeper?" Hei Si suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly. "I didn't want to affect your judgment, and I also wanted you to have enough capital to claim credit in front of the Lord. So, you're fully in charge of this operation. I'll only accept your orders and will never interfere." Black 1 assured in an understanding manner. "In that case, I have to thank you." Black 4 was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He kept cursing in his heart. The cunning Black 1. Unfortunately, he could not do anything to Black 1. Moreover, he was still counting on the Black 1 gang to make a contribution for this operation. Therefore, he could only swallow his anger. "No need to thank me. As long as you don't complain about me to the Lord, I'll thank the heavens." Black 1 said honestly. "Then you better cooperate with me." Hei Si said after taking a deep breath. "I've said it before, I will cooperate with you. Now, Lord Hei Si, please give your orders." Black 1 teased with a faint smile. "Later, we'll split up and take our men into the main residence. After we find Uncle Long, we'll send a signal to him, and we'll deal with that old man together. As for the rest, deal with Leng Ruoxue and the others. Black 4 said. He had already considered this before. All right. Black 1 nodded. Although he was very suspicious of whether they could enter this house, because no matter how he looked at it, he felt that this house was similar to Leng Ruoxue's spatial divine tool. However, he did not intend to tell Black 4 about this. When the time came, he would just let Black 4 think of a way like a headless fly. After making up her mind, Black pretended to be silent. Black 1, lead them and think of a way to sneak in from the main entrance. I'll lead the others to look for the back door. After distributing them to Black 1's team, Black 4 made the necessary arrangements. There's no need to look, this house doesn't have a back door. Black 1 stopped Black 4 upon hearing his words. How is that possible? Hey Si could not believe it. Behind this house is a cliff, and there are 2 courtyards on both sides. So, this house doesn't even have a side door, let alone a back door. Black 1 explained. After staying here for so long, he had not stayed for nothing. He had long familiarized himself with the terrain of Leng Ruoxue's residence. However, he had never thought of taking action. The terrain was truly too disadvantageous to them. Oh. Bring your men in first, I'll keep a lookout for you, then you can go in. Hey Si thought for a while and said. All right then. Black 1 finally realized that this fellow was purely using him as cannon fodder. However, he was not that easy to make use of. Just like that, the 2 men, who each had their own thoughts and looked like they were working well together on the surface, began to cooperate with each other. Black 1 led a team of about 200 people and slowly approached the Leng family's main residence. Along the way, they were safe and did not even encounter any obstacles. Of course, this was because Baby had given them the green light. Baby did not arrange for the beasties to attack Black 1 and the rest. Other than wanting to capture all of them in one fell swoop, the more important reason was that Black 1 was their old friend. From Black 1's aura, it already knew Black 1's identity. It had also been confirmed by Uncle Dragon. Hence, the purple eyes that were looking at Black 1 were currently blooming with a scorching light. The beasts could not help but let their imagination run wild when they saw Black 1's fiery gaze. Baby, you seem to be very interested in this man. The beasts guessed, but they did not dare to say it out loud. At this moment, Black 1 had already approached the Leng family's main residence. Black 1 became even more cautious as he looked at the house that did not seem to have anything special on the surface. He stretched out a hand and placed it on the crack of the door. Slowly, a few cold glints came out of his fingertips and tried to enter through the crack of the door. But very quickly, he felt the cold glints he had released bounce back. He suddenly quivered. There was a formation on the door. Furthermore, it was a defensive formation. Now, he was even more uncertain if this house was the spatial god tool that he knew of. At the thought of this, he quietly transmitted his voice to Hey Si, this house has an array. I can't break the door lock. Why don't you try? How could this be? What kind of formation was so powerful? Even a reverent god like you can't do anything about it. Hey Si's voice was filled with suspicion. It's not like you don't know that I know nothing about formations. Black 1 said helplessly. That's true. Black 4 agreed with this point. Then why don't you hurry over and take a look? Black 1 urged. Although Black 4's attainments in formations were not much better than his, at least he was better. I'm coming. After Hey Si finished transmitting his voice, he gave a look to his subordinates beside him. Everyone then walked towards the main entrance together. He had only taken a few steps when he heard a plop. Plop. The sound of falling continued to ring out. Arg! It hurts. As they cried out in pain, the silver rats, who had been waiting on the side, threw small pills into their mouths. However, before they could notice anything unusual, the small pills had already melted without them knowing. The silver rat, who had completed its task, retreated to the side. When Hey Si heard their screams, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. These idiots were afraid that the people in the house couldn't hear them. Just as he was about to turn around and berate his subordinates, Hey Si suddenly realized that these subordinates seemed to have been seriously injured. What was going on? Black 4 looked at his men who were lying on the ground, unable to stand up. The anger in his heart was rising. When Black 1 saw the situation on their side, he could not help but come over with his men. However, he had only taken a few steps when the people behind Black 1 fell to the ground one after another, all of them crying out in pain. Arg! Damn it! Who tripped me? Someone cursed. The little silver rats took the opportunity to do the same. How could you guys be so careless? Black 1 turned his head and spoke with the same displeasure. However, he was not as angry as Black 4. After all, not many of these people were his subordinates. Lord Black 1. I was tripped by someone. Someone quickly said. You were tripped by someone? Black 1's brows were tightly knitted together. He could not quite believe it, because when Hui 5 fell down earlier, there was no one beside him. Chapter 1945, The Third Party Benefits, 1, Yes, yes. The group of men in black quickly nodded. Although this matter was a little strange, they could only think so for now. Otherwise, if Black 1 and Black 4 blamed them, they would definitely not have a good ending. More importantly, there was no answer to why they had fallen. However, Black 1 was obviously skeptical about this statement. He still cautiously lifted his leg and took a few steps forward, but he did not find anything unusual. The beasts who saw his actions couldn't help but secretly laugh. Of course, they wouldn't let the humans find out. Therefore, when Black 1 lifted his leg, they had already laid the silk thread flat on the ground. After Black 1 saw that there was nothing unusual, he turned around and said to the black-clothed man behind him, "It should be an accident. Quickly take the healing pill and get up." At this moment, many of the men in black were still sitting on the ground. Upon hearing Black 1's words, the men in black hurriedly took out healing elixirs and ate them. However, in reality, everyone was feeling extremely depressed. This was because they had not been at a good start. They had not even dealt with Leng Ruoxue and the rest, and they were the first to get injured. This result made them depressed. However, the men in black were well trained. After a brief moment of panic, they immediately regrouped and prepared for an attack. Black 1 led the men in black behind him and continued to walk a few steps. Then, he heard the sound of someone falling again. Black 1 was a little angry when he heard this sound. Can't you be more careful when you walk? This time, Black 1 roared before the man in black could make a sound. Your Excellency Black 1. The men in black endured the pain in their legs and looked at him with an aggrieved expression. At this time, the moon that had been hiding for the whole night suddenly emerged. With the help of the not-so-obvious moonlight, Black 1 could clearly see the blood stains on the faces of the men in black. His heart suddenly trembled. This was how serious their injuries were. His face was bleeding. Black 1, what's going on? At this time, Hey Si, who felt that something was not right, asked through voice transmission. I don't know. There's something strange about this place. Black 1 looked around vigilantly, but he did not even see a fly, let alone a human figure. Did we fall into an ambush? Hey Si immediately became alert. It's possible. Black 1 said uneasily. At this moment, the sound of light footsteps was suddenly heard by the two of them. Even though the footsteps were extremely light and the owner of the footsteps had deliberately lowered his volume, the slight change could not be hidden from them who were reverent god level. After hearing the sound, the two of them looked at each other and exchanged a tacit look. Then, they nodded silently. After that, the two of them gave the men in black a look. Everyone held their breath and hid their bodies in the dark night sky. Seeing this scene, Baby smiled evilly and whispered a few words to Uncle Long. The two of them turned around and left, going around to the back of another group of men in black. Looking at the same black clothes, Baby's face was full of disdain. Do all bad people like to wear black clothes? It really lacked creativity. After they were done, Baby gave Uncle Long a look. Then, they kicked out together and sent the men in black who were closest to them flying. He only heard a few "ah." The men in black rolled like balls and landed at Black 1 and Black 4's feet. The two of them knew at a glance that these men in black were not their own people. Since they were not their people, they might be on Leng Ruoxu's side. Therefore, they would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. The two of them attacked together. The men in black did not even have the time to call for help before they were killed. When the leader of the other group of men in black saw that his subordinates had been killed, he thought that Leng Ruoxue and the others had discovered his tracks. He decided to go all out and jump out to fight with the other party. Looking at the two groups of black-robed men who were fighting in an instant, all the beasts were dumbfounded. Their eyes were wide open as they looked at this scene in disbelief. This was too dramatic. They hadn't even made a move yet, and the two sides had already started fighting. No. This was definitely not good. They should at least have some practice. At the thought of this, the beasts began to make use of every opportunity to shuttle back and forth between the men in black. When they saw the heavily injured men in black, they would shamelessly add insult to injury. As a result, the number of people on both sides decreased very quickly, and people died almost every minute. As for Black 1 and Black 4, they were naturally fighting the other leader of the men in black. This was because the leader's strength was also at Reverend God level. The two of them treated their opponent as Uncle Long, so they used their full strength as soon as they started fighting. The other leader immediately felt an immense pressure. Baby, who was watching the battle happily from the side, was deeply suspicious of these people's intelligence when it saw the chaos in front of it. In its eyes, these people's intelligence was probably even lower than that of a baby. In addition, at this rate, it and Uncle Long probably wouldn't need to do anything anymore, because more than half of the black-clothed men had already died. In reality, it wasn't that the intelligence of the men in black was too low, it was that they were too confident in their own abilities. Hence, they were not mentally prepared and were injured. This situation had triggered all the anger in their hearts. Hence, when they saw Leng Ruoxue and the others, they were all furious. The other group of people thought that they had been discovered by Leng Ruoxue and the others. Under such a misunderstanding, the two groups of people exchanged blows with lightning speed. Uncle Dragon and Baby watched the progress of the situation with satisfaction and kept a close eye on the three supreme gods in the battle. Gradually, the leader of the other group of black-clothed men was obviously no match for the joint forces of Black 1 and Black 4 and showed signs of defeat. Seeing this, Baby was a little worried. Oh. It was worried that the guy would run away. Uncle Long. 2 against 1 is very unfair. Why don't you go and help that guy? Otherwise, if he finds an opportunity to run away, our efforts will be in vain. Treasure sent a message to Uncle Long. Uncle Long nodded. He could also see that the leader of the men in black was very weak under the siege of the other two. However, just as Uncle Long was about to step forward, he was pulled back by Baby. What's wrong? Uncle Long looked at the baby in confusion. This little guy had too many tricks up his sleeve, and he couldn't guard against it. Uncle Long. You're in cahoots with that guy. That's why, come and change into these black clothes and take a disguise pill. Otherwise, they'll definitely recognize you. Baby laughed evilly. You're so scheming. When Uncle Long heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. No wonder people said that foxes were the smartest among beasts. One could tell just by looking at the treasures. Hee hee. I'm being meticulous. Baby said arrogantly. Chapter 1946, The Third Party Benefits, 2. Uncle Long glanced at the thick-skinned baby speechlessly and ate the disguise pill obediently. He then changed his clothes. At this moment, Ling walked over. Seeing this, Uncle Long understood. It seemed like Ling had come over to help him remove the invisibility spell. After everything was ready, Uncle Long walked out of the shadows. At this time, the Reverend God who was fighting alone realized that he had no chance of winning under the pincer attack of 2 Reverend God-level cultivators. He might even lose his life, so he decided to retreat. As the saying goes, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. Therefore, he could only wait for the next time since he failed to take revenge this time. He had found the right opportunity to leave the place while the 2 were attacking, but who knew that as soon as this thought emerged in his mind, his shoulders were immediately clenched by a pair of iron pincers. In an instant, he felt as if his shoulders had been shattered, and he felt a burning pain. Turning his head in anger, he suddenly discovered that the person pressing on his shoulder was actually an unfamiliar black-clothed man. Instantly, suspicion grew in his heart. Who was this guy? Could he be on Leng Ruoxu's side? Didn't the old man from the Ning family leave already? For a moment, many thoughts flashed through his mind. However, he immediately rejected all of them. However, this person's strength could not help but shock him. Meanwhile, Black 1 and Black 4 had also noticed the situation and were even more vigilant. Uncle Long saw that the 3 of them looked as if they were facing a great enemy and smiled faintly. He said to the leader of the men in black he was holding, "I said I would help you, why didn't you listen to me and insisted on coming here by yourself?" Ugh! When the leader of the men in black heard this, his face was filled with confusion. This person knew him. Was she here to help him? However, he didn't seem to know this guy. He thought about it again and again. Suddenly, he thought of a person. Could it be him? He was suddenly overjoyed. You really came. When the leader of the men in black heard this, he was extremely excited. Before coming here, he had indeed looked for a few friends, but those people had all used various reasons to refuse him. Only this person had said that he would help him, but there had been no movement. Therefore, he had thought that this person was just saying some polite words. He had not expected that he would really come. This surprise made him so excited that he didn't know what to do. Because as long as that person was willing to help him, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to take revenge. Unfortunately, he still didn't know that he had recognized the wrong person. And Uncle Long had accidentally become the person he had set his mind on. Seeing his surprise, Uncle Long could only remain silent. The 2 of them, each with their own thoughts, stood face to face. Uncle Long didn't know what else to say, so he remained silent. The leader of the men in black, on the other hand, was obviously overexcited. However, the back of the leader of the men in black was facing Black 1 and Black 4 at the moment. Therefore, although they could not see the expression of the leader of the men in black, the 2 of them knew that his helper had arrived when they heard his words. Moreover, this person's strength was obviously not weak. This fact made the 2 of them depressed for a while. But then, the 2 of them returned to normal. Looking at Uncle Long and the leader of the men in black who seemed to be reminiscing about the past, Black 1 and Black 4 said in unison, "Don't talk nonsense. Since we have a helper, let's have a good fight." Humph. Do you think I'm afraid of that? With a helper, the leader of the men in black was clearly more confident and provoked. Since you're not afraid, then let's start. Black 1 said impatiently. Big brother. Let's attack together. The leader of the men in black turned to Uncle Long and said. All right. The corner of Uncle Long's mouth twitched. He had actually become this guy's big brother. He didn't know who this big brother was, but now he knew that the leader of the men in black had most likely recognized the wrong person. Therefore, he didn't dare to speak carelessly, in case he exposed himself. In an instant, the leader of the men in black's aura grew and he took the initiative to attack Black 4. As for Black 1, he left him to Uncle Long. Upon seeing this, Uncle Long did not let Black 1 down. He stepped in front of Black 1 and looked at him with a faint smile. This person was their old friend. He really didn't expect that he was still alive. However, his master probably couldn't bear to kill him, so he left him alive. Black 1's heart sank when he saw Uncle Dragon blocking his way so casually. Although the other party was just standing there, the invisible pressure on the other party's body made him, a reverent god, feel a suffocating atmosphere. He had only experienced this situation with Uncle Long, but from the aura on this person, he was not Uncle Long. Since when did the divine realm have so many invisible experts? Black One was secretly surprised. At the same time, he was also calculating the chances of winning against this person. However, after some consideration, he helplessly realized that he had no confidence in winning against this person. After comparing the two, Black One's aura seemed to have dropped while Uncle Long was still standing in front of him calmly with a rare smile on his face. Little Black. Come, let's play. Uncle Long crooked his finger and said to Black. I'm not Little Black. This form of address made Black One extremely displeased. Not Little Black. Could it be a little white? You should know that you're dressed in black. Uncle Long said in an infuriating manner, the smile on his face still asking for a beating. Aren't you also dressed in black? Could it be that you're also Little Black? Black One glanced at Uncle Long's black clothes, which were the same as his, and said through gritted teeth. Hee hee. How could I be Blackie? There's only you and Blackie. As Uncle Long spoke, he extended his palm and grabbed Black One. Upon seeing this, Black One wanted to dodge but realized that he could not move. Damn it, what the hell is this? Why did he feel like he was being restrained? Black One's heart was burning with anxiety, and Uncle Long's palm was close at hand. In fact, although Uncle Long's palm looked ordinary, it contained his might. Not only that, but it also contained another talent of his, restraint. Any human or beast below him would find it difficult to escape after he used this move. However, this move could not be used at any time and place because the binding consumed a lot of divine power. Thus, every time he faced an enemy, he had to deal a heavy blow. Otherwise, his life would be in danger. Now, no matter how wary Black One was of Uncle Long, he would never have expected that Uncle Long would use the binding technique. As such, Black One's cultivation base was of no use. Black One, who was tied up and unable to move, could not describe the anger in his heart with words. He had not even made a move and was captured. He could not even speak. How could he, who had always been proud and arrogant, bear this? Black One felt a metallic taste in his throat. He forcefully swallowed the taste and glared at them with eyes that were spitting fire as if he was saying, "Let me go if you dare, and we'll fight for 300 rounds." However, Uncle Long didn't care about his anger. Chapter 1947, The Third Party Benefits, 3. In fact, Uncle Long, who had been with Treasure and other beasts for a long time, had become lazier and lazier. If there was a more energy-saving way to deal with the enemy, he would definitely not fight with others foolishly. Although binding consumed more divine power, it saved him a lot of trouble. More importantly, he had quite a number of pills that Len Ruoxue had given him to replenish his divine power. Hence, he had no pressure to use the binding technique. At the thought of this, Uncle Long took out a small jade bottle, uncorked it, and poured all the pills into his mouth. Black One's eyes widened even more when he saw this. Fuck. What was this? Was he deliberately angering him? Although he didn't know what kind of pill this hateful guy in front of him had taken, from the spiritual energy that the pill had unconsciously emitted, he didn't need to think to know that the pill was not simple. What was even more infuriating was that this guy had actually finished a bottle. This fact caused the fury in Black One's heart to rise. After taking the elixir, Uncle Long immediately felt that his body was full of spiritual energy. He burped comfortably on purpose and glanced at Hei, whose face was flushed red, out of the corner of his eye. Uncle Long's mood immediately improved. Hee hee. Who would have thought that there would be a day where he would eat medicinal pills as if they were rice? Now, he could finally experience the luxury of having a precious beast. However, this feeling was really good. Especially in front of the enemy. Uncle Long laughed even more heartily when he saw Black One glaring at him so hard that he wanted to punch a hole in him. At this moment, Black 4, who was fighting with the leader of the men in black, saw from the corner of his eye that Black 1 was staring at his opponent without moving. He almost vomited blood in anger. Fuck. He was fighting with his opponent with all his might, but Black 1 was standing still on the spot. Could it be that he could kill his opponent in seconds just by standing? Hey C was furious. Black 1. Don't just stand there, do it. Hey Si urged anxiously. When Black 1 heard his words, he could not help but roll his eyes. He was also furious. Did he not want to make a move? He had to be able to move. Black 1 was filled with hatred. Uncle Long glanced at the troubled Black 1 and the anxious Black 4. He gave up on Black 1 and went straight for Black 4. Sensing the change beside him, Hey Si immediately jumped out of the battle and stared at Uncle Long and the leader of the men in black with a vigilant look. Humph. What kind of skill is a 2-on-1? Black 4 stood a few meters away and said with a look of disdain. At this moment, he had long forgotten that he and Black 1 were also 2 against 1 previously. Moreover, he was extremely resentful of Black 1's lack of contribution. Hee. That's what I wanted to say to you guys. You guys also fought 2 against 1. The leader of the men in black retorted as if he had heard a joke. So what? Hey Si didn't think so. In fact, in his heart, he could be outnumbered, but he didn't allow others to do the same. He was a typical example of only allowing the state officials to set fires, but not allowing the people to light the lamps. What do you think? Can you be more shameless? The leader of the men in black was speechless. He could not understand why Leng Ruoxu's side was filled with such shameless people. Don't talk nonsense with him, continue. Uncle Long didn't want to hear them criticize each other and urge them. In his heart, these 2 parties were shameless. Humph. Do you think that you can capture all of us in one fell swoop with just the few of you? Uncle Long's words made Hey Si sneer. Didn't we already capture all of your subordinates? Uncle Long blinked his eyes and said indifferently. Upon hearing this, Hey Si and the leader of the men in black looked around at the same time. With one look, the 2 of them were both angry. Damn it. I'm going to kill all of you and avenge my subordinates. The leader's eyes were spitting fire as he roared in anger. The people he had brought with him were all lying limply on the ground, clearly not breathing for a long time. This scene made his heart ache. It had not been easy for him to gather these people, but who knew that they would fail? However, the other party didn't seem to have an advantage either. They also suffered countless casualties. This battle could be said to be a lose-lose situation for both sides. I'm going to kill all of you and let you be buried with my subordinates. Hey Si's eyes were bloodshot and the fire on his body was raging. At this time, he was like a fire bird with flames burning on his body, full of murderous intent. After saying that, the 2 of them started to attack each other with all their might. As for Uncle Long, no one paid him any attention. Seeing this, Uncle Long could only treat himself as a passerby and watch the show from the side. Hey Si and the leader of the men in black were fighting in full swing. The divine skills released from their hands lit up the night sky. The ferocious expressions on their faces were also fully displayed in front of each other. Their eyes were red from killing. Panting heavily, the divine skill in his hand was used to smash the other party's body. Uncle Long sighed as he watched from the side. Until the 2 of them were exhausted and collapsed on the ground. However, they were still glaring at each other with their furious eyes. Although the battle between the 2 had not been decided, at this moment, both of them had lost all their strength and their shin power had almost withered. At this moment, the smiling Uncle Long walked to the side of the leader and asked with concern, "How is it?" "Big brother, I'm fine. Quickly help me kill them, I want to take revenge for my subordinates." The leader of the men in black then remembered the existence of Uncle Long, and so did Hey Si. Seeing Uncle Long alive and kicking, Hey Si's heart sank. Damn it. I was so angry just now that I forgot about Uncle Long. Now, I'm like a piece of meat on the anvil. No. He couldn't just sit and wait for death. His mind was racing as he tried to think of a way to escape. However, Uncle Long had already used the restraint on him and held him in place. At this moment, Hsi suddenly realized the truth that Black was not moving at all. However, it seemed to be too late. This fact made Hsi so angry that he wished he could swallow Uncle Long alive. The leader of the men in black also noticed Hsi's strange behavior. He said to Uncle Long with a face of surprise, "Big brother. You've exhausted your strength again. Quickly kill them, don't leave any survivors." "Don't worry. They would be killed. But not now," Uncle Long said with a smile. Hearing Uncle Long's words, the leader of the men in black didn't dare to refute. "Big brother, when you want to kill them, can you let me do it myself?" the leader of the men in black requested. "No problem." Uncle Long agreed without hesitation. But immediately after, a rope appeared in Uncle Long's hand. In an instant, the rope wrapped around the leader's body and tied him up like a rice dumpling. "Big brother. What's the meaning of this?" The leader of the men in black widened his eyes in disbelief. Hee. "Of course, I'm afraid you'll run away." At this moment, Baby appeared in front of the leader of the men in black and smiled wretchedly. He had already asked Ling to remove his invisibility. "You are," the leader of the men in black widened his eyes. This little fox looked very familiar. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat as he recalled the fox's identity. It was Ling Ruoxue, that wretched girl's beastie. This time, even if he was a fool, he would understand that he had fallen into Ling Ruoxue's trap. However, what was going on with those guys who were fighting with him just now? At this moment, he understood that those people were not from the same group as Ling Ruoxue and the others. Otherwise, they would not have been subdued. At this time, Hsi also understood the whole truth. Suddenly, a mouthful of blood spurted out of his throat. He was holding his breath and fainted. This person's mental endurance is so weak. Baby glanced at the unconscious Hsi and said indifferently. However, the leader of the men in black was more resilient than Hsi because he could still ask, "Who are they? And who are you? Why did you impersonate my big brother?" He looked at Uncle Long and asked the last sentence. Hee. "Can't you tell what kind of people they are? The head of the Wen family." Uncle Long revealed the identity of the leader of the men in black and said with a smile. How did you know?" The leader of the men in black, the Wen family head who had taken the disguise pill, looked at Uncle Long in shock and asked in disbelief. He didn't expect that his identity would be seen through. After all, he was very confident in the disguise pill he had taken, but he didn't expect that he would still be exposed. Black One, who could not speak, was equally shocked when he heard Uncle Long's words. He would never have dreamed that the leader of the men in black who were fighting with them was the Wen family head whom his lord had been looking for. What was even more inconceivable was that the two parties had chosen to attack Ling Ruoxue and the others on the same day. However, the most depressing thing was that not only did they not touch a single hair on Ling Ruoxue's group, they had even suffered heavy losses on both sides. This time around, Ling Ruoxue, the fisherman, had really gotten an advantage. Black One was very depressed. However, if he knew that Ling Ruoxue and the rest did not know about this at all and had been in closed-door cultivation all this while, he would be even more depressed. "How did he know your identity?" Uncle Long said faintly. The head of the Wen family stared at Uncle Long attentively, waiting for his reply. Hee. "You idiot. The disguise pill you took was actually refined by my master. So, no matter how well you hide it, you can't hide it from our eyes." Without waiting for Uncle Long to speak, Baby said with a pale face. "What?" Upon hearing this, the Wen family head even felt like dying. Seeing that the Wen family head's face had turned pale, the baby quickly consoled him, "Hey, don't faint like that useless fellow. If you dare to faint, it'll make you suffer." Chapter 1948, Attack of a Powerful Enemy. 1. The Wen family head was so angry that he spat out blood. However, he would not faint for the time being. At the same time, he was not in a good mood either. His heart ached at the thought of his dead subordinates. This was not to say that he was loyal, but it was not easy for him to gather so many people in his current situation. However, they were all wiped out in a short time. If he had hurt Lin Ruoxue and the others, his subordinates' deaths were not in vain. However, the person he wanted to kill didn't even get hurt. How could he accept this? How could he not be depressed? Wrong. At this moment, the word depressed could no longer describe his current mood. He wanted to faint, but he was very energetic. He wanted revenge, but he was tied up like a dumpling. Although the evil fire in his heart was burning more and more fiercely, it was suppressed in his heart. No matter what, he could not vent it out. Slowly, his face turned red, then pale, and his face was as dead as ash. Seeing that the Wen family head was changing colors like a color palette, the baby was not satisfied. He kicked the Wen family head hard with his back leg and said with a look of displeasure, "I just praised you. You'd better work hard and don't faint." "Don't worry. I won't faint." The Wen family head gritted his teeth. Even if he wanted to faint, he had to. Right now, he wished he could kill and swallow this human and fox in front of him alive. They were really too much of bullies. This was clearly a case of a tiger falling into the sun and being bullied by a fox. That's good. Uncle Long, how should we deal with these three people? Baby nodded in satisfaction and then asked about Uncle Long. Uncle Long. When the Wen family head heard these two words, his heart instantly trembled in fear. As expected, it was that old man. He hated himself for treating him as a reinforcement. At this moment, he couldn't help but think that if he didn't trust Uncle Long so much, he wouldn't be in this situation. He was so angry. Be good. Uncle Long took the Wen family head's words for him and nodded his head in satisfaction. He then said to Bao Bei, "Lock up these three people first. When we have time, let's interrogate them and see if they have any other accomplices." "All right." Baby responded happily. Then, he beckoned to the void and a few tall beasts appeared in front of them. They looked at Uncle Long and Baby with admiration and asked excitedly, "Uncle Long, please give me your orders, Baby. You guys take these three guys into the house and hand them over to the Dark Tiger King." Bao Bei said. After it finished speaking, it even looked at the Wen family head with a little sympathy. Hee hee. The Tiger King loved to torture captives. If these three were handed over to the Tiger King, they would be skinned even if they didn't die. Yes. The beasts quickly responded. Then, each beast carried a person and walked towards the house. "What do you want?" "You will regret it if you capture me. My big brother will not let you off." The sound of the Wen family head, who was being carried away, could be heard from afar. However, he was ignored by all the beasts present. Then, Bao Bao led the beasts to clean up the battlefield. After destroying the corpse, Baby's beautiful purple eyes glanced at Uncle Long and saw that he was frowning in deep thought. Seeing this, it couldn't help but walk over and say, "Uncle Long, what are you thinking? You're so engrossed in your thoughts." "Nothing much. I was just thinking about the big brother that the Wen family brat mentioned. I wonder if his big brother will be summoned if we capture the Wen family brat." Uncle Long explained. Hee hee. There's no need to be afraid even if they attract us, we can just capture them all in one fell swoop. Baby said confidently. Looking at the little fox brimming with confidence, Uncle Long was a little speechless. He really didn't know where his baby got such confidence from. That Shuai's beasts had never seemed to be afraid of anything. In fact, he had guessed correctly. These precious beasts were indeed not afraid of anything. In their eyes, if something happened, their lovely master would help them. Therefore, they could do whatever they wanted at any time. More importantly, they were very confident in their own abilities. Although their strength was not high, they had many means. They would use all kinds of methods such as group fighting, drugging, and so on. These methods were not used by ordinary beasts at all. Hence, the upright Uncle Long could not completely understand their mindset of only looking at the results and not the process. But after spending a long time with them, Uncle Long didn't feel that there was anything wrong with their methods. Thinking of this, Uncle Long suddenly looked at the treasure with a curious expression and asked, "Treasure, I've always wanted to ask you, what kind of pill did you have the silver rats give to the men in black?" "Arg. Those. It was laxatives. However, before the medicine could take effect, many people died." Sigh. "This is beyond my expectations," Baby said with a depressed look. It was a pity that its medicine didn't have much effect. Ah. Hearing this, Uncle Long couldn't help but wipe the black lines on his forehead. He finally understood that no matter who you provoked in this world, you could never provoke Shui-Er's little beasts. Otherwise, the strange pills in their hands could toy a reverent god to death. And he firmly believed that this was not the only type of medicinal pill in the hands of his precious beasts. Who asked their master to be an alchemist? Moreover, he was a master who doted on his beasts very much and was afraid that his beasts would encounter danger. With such a master, these little beasts could go anywhere they wanted. For a moment, Uncle Long was filled with envy and jealousy. However, on second thought, he felt relieved. His relationship with Shui-Er was not bad, and that little girl would definitely not mistreat him. Oh. It seemed that if there was a chance, he would also ask for some medicinal pills from Shui-Er that could trick and scheme against people, to experience what it felt like to drug someone. Looking at Uncle Long's conflicted, envious, and happy expression, Baby sighed and said, "Uncle Long, it's getting late. Let's go back and sleep," he said. Ai. Why was Uncle Long so silly? It couldn't understand. Uncle Long nodded. It was indeed time for him to go back and rest. Then, Uncle Long sent the beasts who were helping him away and returned to the yard with his precious little beasts. As soon as they entered the garden, Uncle Long and the other beast men saw the first elder and the others staring at them resentfully. Immediately, their hair stood on end. "Didn't I tell you to go back and sleep? Why aren't you guys listening?" Seeing this, Uncle Long was the first to speak. There was a hint of anger on his stern face. His precious little beasts couldn't help but laugh secretly when they saw this. He didn't expect Uncle Long to be so bad. "You guys are fighting to the death with the enemy outside, while we are sleeping in the room. This is not right. How could we do that?" First Elder quickly said. "Yup. How could we be so disloyal? Even though Uncle Long won't let us out, we still have to stay with you through the light screen in the garden. We want you to know that our hearts are with you," Lu Feng said emotionally. His words naturally received the First Elder's admiring gaze, and he was instantly even more pleased with himself. Chapter 1949, Attack of a Powerful Enemy, 2, MMH. "We accept your kind intentions." "Yes." Uncle Long nodded and said, "The battle is over now. Can we go back to our rooms and sleep?" When First Elder and the others heard this, they looked at each other, but no one said anything. "Uncle Long, can we interrogate the 3 criminals together? We want to help." At this time, Lu Feng revealed their purpose. To put it bluntly, they also wanted to get involved. Otherwise, they would always feel like outsiders. "I can understand that you want to help, but these 3 people are not ordinary. If you get involved, it may cause trouble for you. After all, you are not alone." Uncle Long's words were very subtle, but everyone present was smart, so they all understood what he meant. Uncle Long didn't ask them to come out just now because of this consideration. After all, it wasn't convenient for these people to come out with their identities. After hearing Uncle Long's words, the Great Elder and the others fell silent. It was not the time to shed all pretenses of cordiality with the enemy yet. Hence, it was indeed not wise for them to face the enemy directly with their status. However, they also wanted to express their feelings of being on the same side as Leng Ruoxue and the others. Hence, they were in a dilemma. Seeing that they were silent, Baby smiled and said, "Great Elder, don't be discouraged. We just want to take care of those 3 guys. Hee, have you all forgotten about my lovely master's appearance-changing pill?" Hearing Treasure's words, First Elder and the others were instantly overjoyed. That's right. How could they have forgotten about the disguise pill? With the little girl's disguise pill, even if they did something bad, no one would know that it was them. That was a true weapon that would commit all kinds of evil. Baby saw that their mood had improved and continued, "It's getting late. Well, interrogate those 3 guys tomorrow. Go back to your rooms and sleep now." After saying that, it was the first to run back to its room. Uncle Long and the other beasts followed closely behind. Seeing this, the Great Elder and the others had no choice but to give up their plan of interrogating the 3 people overnight and return to their rooms obediently. The next day. As soon as Uncle Long stepped out of the room, he heard a painful wail coming from the courtyard. The sound was slow at times, high at times, and low at times. It seemed to be coming from the head of the Wen family. Could it be that the Wen family's brat had been sentenced to death so early? Uncle Long guessed. Although he did not witness the scene with his own eyes, he could imagine that the Wen family's boy would not have an easy time. In the garden, Uncle Long sat down casually. The First Elder, who was sitting across from Uncle Long, immediately stood up to pour him a cup of tea. However, at this moment, another loud roar suddenly rang out. The First Elder's hand trembled in fear, and the tea spilled on the table. Uncle Long glanced at the First Elder, who was still in a state of shock, and said, "What are you so nervous about? To think you're the Armament Guild's Great Elder. Why are you also so restless?" The Great Elder's face was full of sweat. Although he wanted to explain, he couldn't find any words to say. Woo! Could he say that he was frightened by the methods of those little guys? In reality, he was not the only one who was shocked. Lu Feng, Lu Yu, Shen Nua, and the rest of the people were all shocked. In comparison, he was still in a better state. At least he wasn't hiding in his room and vomiting non-stop. Thinking of this, the Great Elder silently wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He still had a lingering fear of the methods the little beasts had used to torture their captives. Even someone as knowledgeable as him had never seen such a variety of methods. At this moment, he somewhat sympathized with the 3 people. Ha ha ha. You were the ones who wanted to help interrogate the 3 of them. Why, are you regretting it now? Uncle Long saw through the Great Elder's thoughts and teased him with a smile. Look at how good his foresight is. He didn't intend to interfere in this matter at all. I regret it. The Great Elder said very honestly. He was more than just regretful. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. He probably wouldn't be able to eat for a while. At this moment, Lu Feng, Lu Yu, and Shen Nua also walked out of the room with pale faces. Uncle Long laughed to himself when he saw the 3 of them, but he put on a concerned expression and asked, "What's wrong with you 3? Was he feeling unwell? Are you sick?" The 3 of them looked at each other with bitter smiles. These words. How could they say it? They found it embarrassing to say it out loud. Right, you guys come with me to see those 3 captives. I really want to know what they confessed to. Uncle Long laughed evilly. Uncle Long. That. My stomach isn't feeling well, so I won't be able to accompany you. I'm sorry. Flowing Maple hurriedly replied. After he finished speaking, he disappeared from the spot with a whoosh. Uncle Long, I also, Luyue interjected, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Uncle Long. Your stomach is not feeling well too? Uncle Long's eyes were wide open as he asked in disbelief. He was already laughing in his heart. Ah. That's right. Luyue braced himself and said. His handsome face was burning. He had never felt so embarrassed before, but he had been to that place once and never wanted to go there again. Uncle Long, I have a headache. I don't want to grow old with you. Shen Noa also said anxiously, and disappeared immediately after she finished speaking. Seeing this, Liyue stopped finding excuses and disappeared. Seeing the three of them run faster than rabbits, Uncle Long's face was filled with helplessness. After a while, he said, "First Elder, only you can accompany me. You won't refuse me, will you?" The First Elder stammered. In reality, he really wanted to reject Uncle Long, but those three little brats had already run away. If he didn't give Uncle Long face, he was afraid that Uncle Long would fly into a rage, so he had no choice but to stay. Taking advantage of the situation, Uncle Long directly grabbed the First Elder's arm, half supporting him, and walked in the direction of the cell. Originally, in Leng Ruoxia's plan, there was no prison in the main residence. However, Uncle Long felt that there was a need to set up a prison so as to avoid any ignorant people who came to provoke them. Those who had committed serious crimes could be killed immediately, but those who caused small trouble could be directly locked up in a prison and punished. The Dark Tiger King was in charge of the Leng family's prison. This was exactly what the Black Tiger was thinking. The Dark Tiger King had put in a lot of effort for the second batch of guests that had arrived in the prison. As for the first guest in the Leng family's prison cell, it was naturally the lady who had provoked the Dark Tiger King's family. Uncle Long and the Great Elder walked straight into the cell. At this moment, the cell was gloomy and the atmosphere was unusually heavy. There was no doubt that this was something the Dark Tiger King deliberately did. At this moment, the One family head, Black 1 and Black 4 were locked up in the same cell. Other than the One family head who was firmly tied to a pillar, Black 1 and Black 4 were sitting motionlessly on the ground. Black 4 had also regained consciousness, but his eyes were a little dazed. Chapter 1950, Attack of a Powerful Enemy, 3. Upon seeing this, Uncle Long was secretly surprised. What was this situation? Now, the One family head was the most miserable of the three. His body was covered in blood, and his clothes were not covering his body. And the obvious wounds on his body were so deep that the bones could be seen. Just looking at them would make one panic. After seeing Uncle Long, the Dark Tiger King greeted him warmly before turning its attention to the One family head. At this moment, one of the Dark Tiger King's subordinates was carrying out the punishment on the One family's head. The subordinate had transformed into a human and was holding an extremely sharp and cold dagger. He was cutting the One family's head's body bit by bit. In almost the blink of an eye, a large piece of flesh had been cut off from the One family's head's body. Immediately after, the flesh was ground into powder by the blade's light. Seeing this, Uncle Long could empathize with the feelings of the Great Elder and the others. This place was indeed not a place for normal people. They were too cruel. At this moment, Uncle Long also sympathized with the head of the One family. However, the head of the One family was no longer in a clear state of mind. After screaming in pain, he began to smile foolishly. Uncle Long sighed speechlessly, then turned around and left the cell. He didn't want to come back here anymore. As for the three of them, he would leave them to the Dark Tiger King. Anyway, they were reverent gods, so they wouldn't die in a short time. A few days later, Uncle Long, the First Elder, and the others had slowly gotten used to the screams in their homes. They could now calmly drink tea and chat while listening to the miserable screams. Of course, the First Elder and the others had also recovered their normal food and drinks. However, their appetites had not returned to their peak state. One afternoon, Uncle Long and the Great Elder were sitting in the garden as usual. Suddenly, they felt a tremor in the house while they were chatting. Their eyes flashed and they became alert. They were very confident in Leng Ruoxia's defensive array. However, the house was shaking now. What did this mean? It meant that there was a strong enemy outside, and they were attacking the house. The two of them quickly arrived in front of the light screen in the garden and saw the situation outside the house through the light screen. At this moment, there were dozens of people standing outside the house. Just as Uncle Long and the Great Elder had expected, the dozens of people were attacking their house with all their might. However, when the people outside saw that the house only trembled slightly under their attack, they seemed to be angry. The leader's face was dark, and he looked at the house in front of him with a serious expression. Who is this person? He looks a little familiar. The first elder muttered to himself after seeing the handsome man in the lead. It's him. Uncle Long squinted his eyes and asked in surprise. Uncle Long, do you know him? The first elder was surprised. He only felt that the man looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. He didn't expect Uncle Long to know him. I know him, we're quite familiar with each other. Uncle Long nodded. Do you still remember that there was a wanted criminal in the divine realm who was ordered by Master Yu nearly 1,000,000 years ago? Uncle Long continued when he saw the great elder looking at him expectantly. Of course I remember. That person is the only person in the history of the divine realm who is like a rat on the street and is hated by everyone, the great elder said with a nod. Although he was still very weak 1,000,000 years ago, and it wasn't his turn to do these things, this person's notoriety was really too resounding. Therefore, it was difficult for him to not remember him even if he wanted to. This person is him. Uncle Long said with a serious face. All this while, he had thought that this man was already dead. He didn't expect that this great demon king was still alive. This was definitely not good news for the people of the divine world. In the past, this person was afraid of Master Yu, so he had been hiding everywhere like a stray dog. But now, Master Yu was no longer here. Did this person plan to come out of the mountains? At the thought of this, Uncle Long's expression became more and more serious. Nearly 1,000,000 years ago, the difference in strength between the two of them was unparalleled. It was difficult to predict who would win and who would lose. But now, he was not clear about this person's strength. For so many years, because of certain things, he had been very depressed. Therefore, he did not have the slightest confidence in his heart whether he could defeat this person. The first elder's eyes widened in disbelief. Arg! Wasn't that person dead? Why are you still alive? I also thought that he was dead, but now, he has appeared in front of us alive and well. Great elder, this man's strength is unfathomable. I don't have full confidence. Uncle Long said worriedly. What do we do now? Will they attack? The great elder asked uncertainly. Looking at these people's aggressive appearance, if they were to break in, they would definitely not let go of the people in the house. When he thought about how Len Ruoxue and the rest were still in closed-door cultivation, his heart was in his throat. I'll go wake up the girl and the others. Let them hide in the house. The great elder said in a panic. Although the defense of this house was not bad, the other party was not an ordinary reverent god-level cultivator. He was a great demon who had been famous in the divine realm since 1,000,000 years ago. His strength was no small matter. And from his point of view, with the defense of this house, when the little girl and the others entered the spatial god tool, it was equivalent to having 2 insurance. At the very least, they would be much safer. After saying that, First Elder planned to go and call for people. However, he was stopped by Uncle Long after he took 2 steps. Don't worry, they might not attack. Uncle Long quickly stopped him. Actually, he didn't want the great elder to miss because Shuai-er and the others weren't in the room at all. However, he also knew that the great elder didn't know that Shuai-er had another space, so he naturally couldn't tell the little girl this secret. What he could do now was to calm the flustered great elder and make him have confidence in Shuai-er's defensive formation. After all, he had personally tested Shuai-er's formation. Even if the opponent was a reverent god, it would not be easy to break in. I know, but we have to be prepared. I don't know how this great devil found his way here, this is really an undeserved disaster. The first elder said gloomily. At this time, the 3 of them who had sensed the abnormality ran out of the room. The first elder saw this and described the situation to them. After hearing it, the 3 of them were all stunned. Among the 3 of them, the oldest one was less than 10,000 years old. Therefore, the great demon that the great elder was talking about was too far away from their era. However, they were no stranger to this great demon who was the only one wanted by the Divine Master Order. He was called a great devil because the things he did were really outrageous. Not only did this great devil have a profound cultivation base, his appearance was also incomparably handsome, not inferior to Master Yu. He also liked beauty, so many women in the divine world were head over heels for him. After all, compared to the unattainable and peerlessly handsome Master Yu, this man was at least someone they could have. So for a moment, at least half of the women in the divine world had knelt before his trousers. Originally, it was his ability to be liked by so many women. Other people could only stare at him with envy and jealousy. But the key problem was that this man liked the new and abandoned the old too quickly. Every woman he abandoned was usually cut off mercilessly by him. In his words, they were his woman in life and his ghost in death. The woman he didn't want couldn't be taken advantage of by other men. As for the women's deaths, they were all extremely miserable. Moreover, every woman died in a different way. It could be said that there were all kinds of strange and fancy ways. Furthermore, if he was in a bad mood, he would directly exterminate the woman's family. He never hid these things, so these evil deeds quickly spread throughout the entire immortal realm. Instantly, the god world was in an uproar. Some experts who claimed to be a man of justice even issued a bounty for him. Anyone in the firmament could kill him, but there were very few experts who could beat him. Most of the experts fell into his hands, and he dealt with the experts who died in his hands with extremely cruel methods. As time went by, his bounty increased, and the number of experts who died in his hands also increased. In the end, everyone in the divine world was in danger, afraid that he would take revenge. For the sake of the divine world's stability, the God Lord's estate, which had always been neutral, issued a God Lord order to him. This was also the first God Lord order in the history of the divine world. Several years after he had been wanted, the experts sent by the God Lord's estate had finally succeeded in eliminating him. The God world had finally gotten rid of a great threat. And these were all the things that Flowing Maple and the others knew about the great demon's main deeds before and after he was eliminated. Thinking of this, Flowing Maple and the others curiously looked through the screen at the handsome man standing in the middle of the dozens of people. The man was very young, looking to be in his early 20s. His appearance was so handsome that words could not describe it. His temperament was like that of a banished immortal. Looking at him was enough to make any man feel inferior. More importantly, there was no trace of lust on him, nor was there the decadence of indulging in beauty. In short, this was definitely a man who did not look the same on the surface, but also a man that women could not resist.